CNJ's Epic Quest. CNJ's Epic Quest. CNJ's CNJ's Epic Quest. CNJ's Epic Quest. CNJ's Epic Quest. CNJ's.
Hey everybody, welcome back to D&J's Epic Quest. Derek Thord here with you with
Jarza Arlong.
I think this will be a fun episode. You and I had a text conversation the other night that I feel like maybe I shouldn't have done. I should have just completely left it for here. But I think we'll still have a good time.
What do you mean?
I think I should have just waited to spring it on you till now.
I don't even remember. I'm sure that like when you bring it up, you'll remind me. So
How do you not remember?
I don't know. I could tell you what chapter something happened in, but I couldn't tell you. I couldn't tell you. I don't know. I don't know, dude. I feel like we talk every day. I mean, we're on a 63-day streak on TikTok.
Oh damn, we're over 60. I guess I haven't paid much. I know I send you stupid shit all the time, but
Right, you're about ready to fuck it up. I sent you 2 things.
I've been busy golfing all day today.
Cater to me, Derek. Come on.
Okay, I will look at it right now. Yeah, what's been new?
I mean, since I've last seen you, not much. I mean, that was a whole week ago, but
Yeah, a week ago you came down, we hung out. Fuck, was that like when you were down? Shoot, I'm trying to watch my language, that's right. Was that before or after that we got hailed on?
that was after. It was last week.
Yeah. Okay, but that was definitely after we recorded last.
Yes.
Yeah, so suffered some pretty significant hail damage at my house in the midst of this basement project, which at least my basement didn't get wet, so that was nice. But we're gonna have to get a new roof here, I think, and our car's got some damage, so that sucks.
Well, I mean, it's homeowners insurance, right?
Yeah, but we still got to pay deductible.
A stupid deductible.
Yeah, and then you came down and we hung out, and that was fun. Yeah, today I was golfing and had some drinks. Got a little buzz playing golf.
Nice.
For the local food shelf. So
nice.
Yeah.
Nice. And I know you were telling me before, but how did you do?
I don't know how we placed. There was 7 groups of 4, but each group of 4 it was 2 teams. I don't know what par for the course was, but we shot 10 over, and the other team that we were with, the one guy, it was his first time ever playing golf. And the girl that he was paired with, it was her 3rd time. So they didn't keep score.
Yeah, I wouldn't either.
But it was fun. It was a good time.
Nice.
I won a $20 gift certificate to Spinner's Bar in Lower North. So
there you go.
Yep. This chapter, this one starts off a new subbook. I really like this chapter. I didn't get a chance to reread it last night or today, so we'll see how I do with things. But we could have some divisiveness here between us.
Think so?
Maybe. I hope so. We're just going to leave it there.
Okay.
But it should be a good one, and you better get your popcorn ready because this will probably be a longer one.
Ooh, that's been a minute. We haven't heard the popcorn in a minute.
No.
On to our patrons. We've got Jan the Picker, Luciana Etrigan, Ryan the Topological, Damien Facing the Rock, Nate Fiddle Me This, Shield Anvil Dylan, Calvin He Who Witnessed, Livia the Malazan Potato, Aaron Mott Irregular, Scott the Only, Graceless Passion, Dead Smell, Justriant, My Own Genesis, Alex the High Mage, Tyler the Great Raven, The Joyful Union, Tony the Watch, and Steve Bottle Cags.
Thanks, everyone. And I don't know if you saw in our Patreon chat, but Tyler had to be I guess I don't know if he voluntarily evacuated or if they were like told they had to evacuate. But he lives in Utah and they had some fires. He put a picture of a fire that was like across the street from his house.
Oh my gosh.
So hopefully he's doing all right. Hopefully things didn't get out of control there.
Yeah, let's hope that that's not the case and that everything's good.
Yeah, hope everything's good for you, Tyler. Thinking of you. House of Chains, subbook 4, last subbook of the book here. You have barred the doors, caged the windows, every portal sealed to the outside world, and you find what you feared most. There are killers, and they are in the house. House Talonball.
Kind of makes it seem like all your efforts were for naught, right?
You're going to keep everybody out, but you don't have to worry about who's on the outside.
Right, because they're already inside.
Right?
All right. Chapter 18, Epigraph. The rage of the whirlwind goddess was an inferno. Beaten on the forge of holy Roriku. The legions that marched in the dust of blood, burned by the eye of the sun, were cold iron. There, on the dry harbor of the dead city, where the armies joined in battle, Hood walked the fated ground, where he walked many times before. The divided heart, Fisher. All right, section 1 here of chapter 18 of House of Chains. She had crawled her way alongside carefully stacked stones to the edge of a trench where she finally came into sight of her sister. Tavore was recreating a battle with her brother's bone and antler toy soldiers and using the rubble from the estate's torn-up wall, currently undertaking repairs. Felsen had come to find out that her sister was recreating the battle that was wiped away from the history books of a century-old clash between the Royal Unten army and the rebelling house of Kaaz de Avor, a battle that destroyed the Kaaz household and bent them against their will, Tavore taking on the role of Duke Knusen Tavore. Tavore was working on every possible aspect to achieve victory. Trapped in a steep-sided valley by a series of unfortunate circumstances and ridiculously outnumbered, military scholars all agreed that victory in those circumstances was impossible. Felsen never learned if Tavore was able to fix where Knusen has failed. Felsen's spying on her sister had become an obsession, as it seemed that to Felsen, Tavore had never been a child. Tavore had stepped into Gano's shadow and stayed there. That was until Gano's left for schooling, where Tavore went through a small change. It seemed that she was no longer in Gano's shadow, but took place as his shadow. None of these thoughts existed in her mind all those years ago. The obsession with Tavore still existed, but her reasons were because that she was a child. The disgrace of meaning comes much later, like brushing away dust to reveal shapes in stone.
Do you recognize that name?
Tavore?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was Prince Kaz in Gardens of the Moon, wasn't it?
Prince Kaz de Avor, yeah.
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 Okay. So how's he still alive if it was a century-old battle?
Oh, no. It's not actually Kaz de Avor. It's the house. It's like his ancestors. It's his lineage. It's currently his, but they're talking about like, huh?
But there was a Prince Kaz.
De Avor, yeah.
Which, to me, it sounds like it would be the same dude.
I think that they're talking about his house, like, you know what I mean? Like his lineage.
But that doesn't make sense to me. If it's his house, how could it be his house if he's not born yet then at this point, but later on it is? Like
I think that at this point he probably is born, because I'm going to go with he's older than Tavore and Felsen. So at that moment in time, Kaaz Tavore owned the house, right?
So he's like 100 some years old.
Right.
Okay.
But the century-old battle took place with his ancestors of the same lineage. I'm explaining this so bad.
Okay. I do get what you're saying now. Okay. All right.
Well, you threw me there for a loop, and I was about ready to agree with you, and I'm like, no, wait a minute. No.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
The first thing I absolutely loved this backstory, this image, this memory, right, of Sha'ik reborn, crawling through rubble. And it's even stated, I didn't summarize, that she's in a new dress, that her mother would kill her had she scuffed up, right? So she's taking this risk to crawl through some rubble just to watch Tavore play with Gano's abandoned action figures, essentially.
This is good, like, yeah, backstory and history, and just kind of seeing what her like upbringing was like, why she is how she is now.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I like the world building that is taking place around Tavore here, right? Like clearly seems she's a very methodical, a very patient, which leads me to believe that she is indeed cold iron. I know earlier on at the end of a sub book, the cold iron sub book, you and I, fiddler, strings, whatever, we were all wondering the same thing. And I think that this very, very intricate detail about Tavore reflects cold iron. I think that it is more in line with a cold iron standpoint than it would be anything else.
And this makes me really wonder, like, if this is going to be foreshadowing to the battle that's going to take place. Like, it makes me wonder if I should change my stance on what I think will happen.
What do you think will happen?
Well, okay, so she's been like reenacting this battle with her like toys, right?
Yeah.
Because it was a battle her ancestors lost or whatever, right?
Not Tavore's ancestors, but it's just a battle that she has studied
Okay, so
over and over again.
it's one that she has interest in then, and she's interested in the side that lost. Is what I take away, and she wants to find a way. Okay, how do they win this fight?
Right.
So I feel like she's going to be in this situation going forward, but I feel like it's going to be flipped in the sense that Prince Kaaz's forces were defending in this situation. She's not going to be defending, she's going to be attacking. So I guess it's not really different than it's how does she keep it from changing, I guess. I don't know. I've thought a lot about it. Like if this is foreshadowing, if she's going to pull off, the impossible thing or not, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think that the beginning of this chapter really opens up to or gives way or predicts, maybe not predicts, but gives us insight as to potentially how these two sisters will battle it out, right? It even says in here, Kaaz, Duke Canusan, Tavore was trapped in a steep-sided valley by a series of unfortunate circumstances and ridiculously outnumbered. We find out as we go throughout the chapter, and maybe you highlighted it, maybe I did, maybe we didn't. I don't know. I can't say off the top of my head. I don't look at your notes. You don't look at mine, blah, blah, blah.
Not usually, yeah.
Yeah. So based on what I'm seeing here is there's like one sentence has three circumstances all entwined within it. Steep-sided valley, unfortunate circumstances, and ridiculously outnumbered. Well, I would think that what happens later on in the chapter with, Leo Min of the Flails, I would call that an unfortunate circumstance to the Malazans. I would also say that throughout the chapter, there are moments where it is stated that they outnumber the Malazans. And I think that the opening of this next section kind of defines where it is that Malazan or Sha'ik Reborn are co-conspirators with the plans, right? All kind of have laid out where they want Tavore, etc., etc.
Yeah, I guess I don't know if I really agree on one side outnumbering the other. I felt like they were pretty even numbered or close to it, from what I remember, but maybe not. The unfortunate circumstances, I guess I can kind of see what you're saying with what happens later in the chapter, but to me it feels like it's pretty even going into it. I feel like with what in your section here, what Tavore is studying is going to be the position of Sha'ik.
Yeah. I guess it's hard, and this is where, the beginning of our divisiveness of this episode may start to shine a little bit. But I do think that the whirlwind has the advantage in the numbers. But as we kind of find out throughout the chapter, even though they have the numbers, the advantage, they're playing on home field. They have home field advantage. I don't think that they come out victorious. Purely based on this section alone, I am convinced, and I would be willing to bet a pie that Tavore does come out on top, but it is exactly as it was for Knussen. She somehow has figured out where Knussen did not, and that is what makes her like a military legend.
And I can kind of get on board with that. The only thing I feel different on is I guess I don't remember if one side's really outnumbered the other like vastly, maybe a little bit, but I feel like they're fairly close where it's kind of negligible. But Tavore definitely does not have her army does not have the experience for sure. And I feel like what this is talking about in this first section, what she was studying, is not going to be the position that she finds herself in. She's not going to be in Knussen's position. She's going to be on the other side of it.
Mm.
And what I feel like, what I thought at first is that she's studying this to try to find out how she can win that fight, but she's not going to be in that position.
Because she would never allow herself into it? Is that kind of what you're going for?
Well, she isn't going to be on that side of the battlefield. She's not going to be with her back to a wall. It's Sha'ik's forces that are going to have their back to the wall, so to speak. The valleys and stuff. I think what she's studying is she's looking for all these different angles to make sure that there's not a way that she loses that fight, is what I take away from it. Which it kind of contradicts what I thought earlier going into it. That I think she's obviously going to be bloodied. She's going to take a beating to some extent. But now I'm second guessing that a little bit. Maybe she's not. I don't know.
I think that maybe you hit the nail on the head when you said inexperienced army. I think that no matter as a leader what you do, like sometimes there isn't a way around that inexperience. And I think that inexperience leads to an unforeseen circumstances that end you up in that situation. And therefore she recognizes, shit, I'm in the situation. Aha, that one time when I was 9 years old and I figured out where Knussen failed, now I get to apply what I had learned there. And that is how she becomes victorious. Maybe not by a lot or even a ton, but just I don't even know. We're not there yet, but it's just this very small, tiny ass section has so much foreshadowing into it. And like if you're not paying attention, like you could miss some really cool shit.
I think it's 100% opposite of what you said, is how I feel. I think she wants to prevent that 1 in a million scenario where Knussen won that fight. She needs to prevent that from happening.
Yeah. Hey, I mean,
because she has that inexperienced army. And yeah, she got those 3,000 Kundral or whoever, the Burn Tears dudes. She got the 3,000 of them, which certainly helps, but I don't think that's enough. You'd spread them so thin, like it's that experience, that amount of experience is, again, negligible in the grand scheme of things with the number of people that are going to be involved.
Okay. All right. Well, I mean, the divisiveness continues. I guess I'd be cool with either scenario. I'm really indifferent as to how it happens. These are just my interpretation of this section.
And that's kind of like what and like I see your point. I get it because I thought the same thing, but I don't think that's what Erickson wants us to see. I think he wants.
You think this is too obvious?
I think it's. I don't want to say you're like stupid or something for looking at it that way. Sorry. But I think it's okay. She's studying this, but we need to look at it from the opposite perspective. That's how I feel. Obviously, like you feel differently. And we'll see what happens, I guess, which is, like you said, it'll be fun to see what happens.
Ah, I see what you're saying. So not necessarily studying what Knudsen did wrong, but more or less how to get Knudsen into that predicament. Is that what you're saying?
Well, Knudsen, he failed, right?
Yeah.
He could have done any number of things. Maybe that would have changed the outcome of that battle in his favor,
Right.
right? So I think that's what she's looking at, is what those other things that he could have done that would have changed the outcome. And I think she wants to prevent that so that Knudsen or, Sha'ik does not get that outcome. Basically,
Gotcha.
she wants to repeat what happened, I think.
But I mean, you think that Malazan is unaware of this scenario, right? Malazan is not purposefully trying to put Tavore in this situation, right?
Felsen doesn't really have anything to do with it. We know this is all Corbolo Dom doing this.
Right. But do you think that it's possible that Corbolo Dom is using this as a reference because there was no there wasn't as it states in the section, every scholar agrees that there was no possible way to change the outcome. So Corbolo Dom is looking at his landscape, right? And in the second section, Sha'ik kind of talks about Dom's plan a little bit, and how he is intentional and like super focused on where he wants Tavore. So is it possible that like what we're not hearing is that Dom has also aware of this battle that was culled from the history books, is using that information and, oh, well, the land is perfect to recreate that battle. I'm a guaranteed winner.
I guess I don't know how aware Dom is of this fight, but I also think that scholars are just that. They're not soldiers, right? And we're not getting a lot here on why this particular battle failed. If there was inept leadership, if you have that capable leadership, maybe it doesn't fail. If you can rally your troops to hold the line or whatever it is, maybe that would have been enough to change the outcome. But
I mean, you're the better one with this military stuff. I feel like you have a leg up on me. I'm just gonna say that you're probably right, based on the fact that you seem to have an eye for this, whereas I'm just kind of maybe falling for it. But I guess I'm excited to see how this turns out. Like, that would be really cool.
I mean, I feel confident in the way I'm thinking, but that doesn't mean I'm going to be right, though, either.
Well, no, but I'm just saying that, like, you have a little bit more of an acuity for it than I do, being that, you've studied more military things than I have. Not that, like, you're poring over history books or anything like that, but you have a little bit more of an acuity for it than I do. So you very well could be not falling for it. Maybe this is what he intends. Is like, you know what? Tavore studied this to avoid, and that was a perspective I didn't even consider.
Like I said, the first time I read it, I definitely I was thinking the same thing as you, and then I kind of changed my stance on it because I think it's going to be in a sense reversed. So she doesn't want to fall into that trap where that Hail Mary happens,
Yeah, that is true. That is very, very true. But, even in Deadhouse Gates, we had that one battle where Coltane is essentially forced to walk up this like hill thing. And there was only one exit, and that was up a ramp. And all of the pillars are. Yeah.
Yep.
And then they did the turtle shell thing.
Yep.
The shields.
Yep.
So that's kind of what he was essentially forced to do it.
Yeah.
Not to beat a dead horse about this very specific thing and not to take a whole hour talking about this tiny ass section. But maybe that is the circumstance, right? Like there's the cool thing is there's so much flavor and variety as to where this could go, where this could lead. But yeah, it's just interesting. Again, I didn't even think of the opposite. Like, let's study this so that this doesn't happen to me.
That's just where my mind went.
This part where that Gano's left for schooling, where Tavore went through a small change. Just like, Gano's leaving for schooling, it just made me like wonder if this potentially aligns with the prologue of Gardens of the Moon. Because we see Paran as like a young lad overlooking the mouse quarter as it burns. So I'm just wondering if maybe he went to Malaz City for schooling.
Maybe.
And that's why he's there. I know that like he's there with his dad, but not a lot has been revealed. But I just kind of wonder if there's an alignment there, possibility.
Yeah, for sure.
This next one's a little bit a long thought anyway. But again, this part where Tavore was no longer in Gano's shadow, but instead took her place as his shadow, right? I think this is interesting, and this really isn't the first time we've been exposed to this theme. The Edur being the shadows of the Andi, right? I think that whatever happened before between the Elder Light or Shadow and Dark Houses being recreated again within the Paran household. 3 children, parents dead and gone, impending destruction as your theory suggests, right? Versus Andi, Edur, Leosin, 3 children / siblings, parents either dead or gone, and have destroyed each other, right? That's maybe what we'll see in Midnight Tides, in Midnight Tides, or even the Carcana series, is maybe that sibling rivalry. So there's this weird parallel in my mind between the Paran siblings and like light, dark, and shadow.
That's interesting. I like that, and I think that's interesting.
Where that goes, I don't know, but it's I almost kind of feel like they're almost shadows of each other, right? Like they're reflections, they're illusions of each other. And I think later on this theory comes a little bit back when we talk about the whirlwind.
All right.
The last thought, the very ending of this chapter, or this section, excuse me, the disgrace of meaning comes much later, like brushing away dust to reveal shapes in stone. And I love this, and it seems obviously as an archaeological reference. And I think what it's trying to say is that Felozin doesn't realize the meaning of what Tavore was doing. By recreating a battle, an unbeatable one, I think that this is the moment that Felozin, or Sha'ik Reborn, realizes that she's fucked. It almost seems to me, at least, that the rest of the chapter really shows her doubts as the battle draws near. And I think that this very last line, this just last sentence, almost just gives you the tone for the entire chapter, because that is exactly how I felt as I was reading this chapter.
I don't really know how much Felozin really comes through. Like, I feel there's definitely times, but it feels like Sha'ik is much more prevalent of the 2 personalities, right?
Mm-hmm.
But maybe you're right. She's picking up some of that doubt.
Yeah, I would agree. It's funny how this one thing can kind of, I guess, be the common element throughout the whole chapter. It gave me a very like greasy feeling, very just like queasy. Like you don't have any confidence at all at what you're doing. And now as like the time draws near, you're starting to panic, is what this feels like.
Right.
Anyway, let's go back to the beginning of the episode. What do you think?
All right. So, my question to you, let's pretend Deadhouse Gates, Coltane doesn't die.
Oh, no.
So, okay, like we're looking at this book now, right? And at least to me, it feels very much like that Tavore is the underdog in this impending fight that we're going to see here pretty soon, right? I don't know if you agree with that or not.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would agree.
You agree with that.
Okay. Yeah.
If Coltane doesn't die, if Tavore has Coltane in her command structure, that's such a huge shift in your strategy with what you can do. How do you think that changes things? It's almost an impossible question to answer.
I think maybe we revisit that question after we find out what happens.
Okay. I'm fine
Right?
with that.
I think in order for me to answer that appropriately, I would need to know the outcome. If she wins, right, for lack of a better term, if she wins against her sister, then Coltane is not needed, right? Regardless of whether he lived or died.
Maybe. I feel like she's going to win at a great cost. But if you have Coltane, maybe that cost isn't so great because your strategy changes so much having him.
Well, the cost is her sister, so how much does Coltane actually influence that? Whether he's dead or alive, the cost is still the same.
Well, I don't know that, fellas. I don't know that Sha'ik is going to die. To me, the cost is how many Malazans are going to die on
that's fair.
Tavore's side. And I think if you have Coltane, your losses are a lot less. You have one of the most competent commanders that we know of. He's going, I think, and I'm kind of giving you my answer to this question. I think he comes up just like with what we saw, his unorthodox tactics in Deadhouse Gates, right? Like that continues. Does he continue to beat the hell out of Corbolodam? How much is that going to just piss him off? Corbolodam having to continue to fight Coltane after he's been beaten 7, 8, 9, 10 times, or does that turn into the one time that Coltane loses? I guess I don't know.
I don't know. It's a complicated answer.
It is.
I mean, I guess in my head canon, and again, I guess this could just be the episode of Division, almost like two siblings going head to head at each other, right? In my canon, in my head, I don't think that Malazan or Sha'ik Reborn makes it out. I think that she ends up dying.
Interesting. Okay. I guess I'm not getting that feeling yet that will happen in this book. Maybe down the road for sure. I don't know. We can definitely talk about that later on here because I've got some different thoughts.
Okay.
Yeah, we've been talking for a little bit on that one small section here, so it's been fun.
Oh well, I have a fuck, marry, kill for you.
Oh, okay, let's do it.
Okay, I do have one that you can interchange.
Okay.
The matron from Memories of Ice. Okay. Princess Sharn from Boshalan and Corvo Broach, Blood Follows, and then Whiskey Jack.
So if I married Whiskey Jack, does it save him?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, then I guess I would marry him and save him.
Okay.
Really, what happened with Princess Sharn? Which one was she again? Was she though like the bondage freak?
Yeah, dude. She wanted to do some nasty things, man.
I guess I'd bone her and then kill the matron.
There we go. I got our answer.
Who was the fourth if I switched out?
Itkovian.
I would, yeah, I'm satisfied.
Okay. All right.
All right. Fine. It's been damn near an hour. Time to move on to section 2.
Already? Seriously?
Well, I don't know. It's been probably over half an hour.
Yeah. All right. Well, I guess we can move on to your second section. So.
My first section.
Oh, I mean, yeah, total.
All right. Sha'ik stood on a piece of ancient sea coral on the south side of the city, trying to see the flat basin that would be their battleground. 4,000 paces away, the whirlwind roared and ripped away sand that once covered ancient islands. What was left didn't look like a secure spot for legions to assemble. Footing would be dangerous and formations would be impossible. To the east, the land fell away 80 armed spans to the salt flats below, while to the west were soft sand dunes. Corbolodam had explained how the forces would be arrayed, and it seemed to her that he fashioned a defensive position despite their superior numbers. Okay, I guess you were right here. Dom was excited to prove his heavy infantry and shock troops against the Malazan equivalent since Tavore was marching to them. That gave the army of the apocalypse the edge. Tavore found herself as Duke Kinusin Tavore in Ilibar Gorge. Despite the heat, Sha'ik drew her cloak close around her. She looked to Mathok, who was nearby with other bodyguards. She didn't know why he thought she was in danger of being assassinated, but there was no harm in going along with his precautions. Since Toblakai and Leoman were gone, he was her protector. She did not think it likely that Tavore would send killers after her, especially since the whirlwind goddess could not be breached undetected, no matter what warren a person tried to use. Sha'ik thought to herself it was because the barrier itself defines a warren, and it lies like an unseen skin over the holy desert. It is a fragment no longer, but a power unto itself, and it continues to grow, and one day it would demand a place in the deck of dragons, the house of the whirlwind, fed by spilled blood of a slain army. She continued thinking to herself, when she, Tavore, kneels before her, what then? Broken and bowed, her army smashed behind her. Would she then remove her helm and reveal herself to her sister? They had taken the war away from the rebels, the empress, the empire, and made it their own small war within their family. Once the recognition hits Tavore's eyes, her entire world would shift, and only then would Tavore understand what had happened, what she had done, and why. After that, she didn't know. Simple execution wouldn't do. Too easy. Punishment belonged to the living. The sentence would be to survive, beneath the chains of knowledge. A sentence not just to live, but living with. That was the only answer to everything. She heard footsteps behind her. It was Lorik, and he wore no smile. Sha'ik said she was happy she had come to see him, since he had not visited in a while. She thought to herself that he was hiding secrets. She could sense his struggles and wondered what he would tell her. But he would say nothing, even with all the power of the goddess behind her. This was a warning to her. He was not all he seemed, not only a mortal man. Lorik said he had not been feeling well, even with his short trip away from the camp. Sha'ik said she grieved for his sacrifice and would get straight to the point in that case. Hebrik had stowed himself away, will not come out, and is not taking visitors, and it had been weeks. Lorik said he was barred from everyone. Sha'ik continued and said he, Lorik, was the last to talk to him. Lorik genuinely seemed surprised, and Sha'ik was not expecting that reaction from him. He said that Hebrik has long been distressed. She asked why. Lorik's eyes flickered, and he said Hebrik grieved for her sacrifice. She said she didn't think her sarcasm could hurt him. Lorik said he was not being facetious, and that Hebrik, in truth, does grieve. Sha'ik cut him off, saying, her sacrifices. But which ones? Lorik said she would need to ask Hebrik. She said they must not have been close enough friends to confide in each other. Lorik said nothing, and Sha'ik realized he couldn't say anything because that would admit he has something to confess. She looked to the battlefield before her and thought to herself that she could imagine the armies and soldiers there. But then what? How are they moved? What is possible? What's impossible? The goddess had no answers for these questions, for they were beneath her. The goddess's power was her will, and that alone. But sometimes will was not enough. She said Corvolo Dawn was happy with the arena of battle. Lorik wasn't surprised. Sha'ik asked why, and Lorik explained that he would want Tavore to do exactly what he wanted her to do. He expects the Malazan army to walk up and be slaughtered, as if by his will alone he could make Tavore foolish or dumb. He wants to fight her there, expects her to, but why would she do what he wants? Sha'ik wondered on that. Why would Tavore do what Dom wants? His certainty is simply bluster. Does he demand something to be simply because that's how he wants it? She thought that none of them were really any different. She thought on Camus Rouleau, Fael, Henneris, Fevril, Bidithal, Leoman, who had half an irritated smile through all of Dom's descriptions of the battle to come, as if he had other ideas. But she thought he was stoned out of his mind on Durang. She shouldn't expect military genius out of him. Plus, Dom had something to prove. Lorik said it was dangerous to trust a commander who wars with the aim of slaughter. Sha'ik asked, as opposed to what? He said, victory. Sha'ik asked if slaughter of the enemy didn't achieve victory. Lorik said that was the flaw in the thinking, as Leoman pointed out the month before. The flaw is one of sequence. Victory precedes slaughter, not the other way around. She asked why then he, or Leoman, did not voice their concerns with Dom when tactics were being discussed. Lorik said there would be no discussion with Dom. It was his way or no way. Sha'ik snapped and said Tavore was the same way. Lorik said it didn't matter, and Sha'ik didn't understand why. Lorik explained it was the Malazan military doctrine, which Coltane knew well, but Pormqual lost sight of. Tactics are consensual. The Seam Ultor's original doctrine, when he was first made First Sword of the Malazan Empire, said, strategy belongs to the commander, but tactics are the first field of battle, and it is fought in the command tent. This system relied on capable officers. However, Lorik continued, incompetent officers, like those in that emerged in the chain of Sha'ik cut him off and said he meant the noble-born. Lorik said yes, the Seam would have never allowed the purchasing of commissions, and from what he has seen, neither does the Empress. So there was a culling. Sha'ik cut him off again, saying she knew, and by his argument, Tavore's personality made no difference. Lorik said that wasn't entirely true. Veteran soldiers spoke of hot and cold iron. Coltane was cold iron. Dujek one arm is cold iron, though not always. He is a rare one, being able to shift as necessity commands. But Tavore, she is unknown. She asked Lorik to explain cold iron to her. He called for Mathok to help explain. He said he needed help explaining cold iron. Mathok said it is hard, sharp. It is held before you and you reach. The war chief's soul is either raging with the fire of life or cold with death. Dom is hot iron, just as he is, just as she, Sha'ik, is. They are as the sun's fire, the desert's heat. The army of the apocalypse is hot iron, so they must pray that Tavore is hot iron as well, because then they would not lose. Sha'ik stumbled but caught herself. She asked what if Tavore is cold iron? She was told then that would be the worst outcome. Who would shatter first? Lorik said that according to military histories, cold iron beats hot 3 out of 4 times for every one it loses. She exclaimed, didn't Coltane fall to Dom? Mathok said Coltane and Dom fought 9 times, and of those, Dom was the clear victor only once, at the fall, outside the walls of Aran, and he needed Camus Berlot's help and the power of Mael channeled through the Gistal priest, Malik Rel. Her head was spinning, and Lorik could feel her tremble. He spoke to her, saying she knew Tavore, didn't she? And she was cold iron too. She didn't know how she knew for sure, but she nodded. Lorik asked Mathok if they had anyone who was cold iron. He said there were only 2. One of them was capable of hot and cold iron. It was Toblakai and Leoman of the Flails.
Feel like you got a little fucked in this chapter.
You got it in the last one, so it all evens out at the end, right?
Yeah, this is why we do it. Well, it isn't why we do it, but we want to do it, is what I'm getting at.
Right.
Yeah.
So my first thought here is kind of like we were talking about before. So Tavore found herself as Duke Knusen Tavore in Ibalar Gorge, but I think it's in the reverse position. I think Duke Knusen, he was in the defensive position, right? Like he had his back to the wall, essentially, or whatever, right?
I don't remember, and I'm sure that I have a reaction on camera when you brought up defensive position, because that is not something that I recall. I don't recall in that first section if it was explicit as to whether it was offense or defense.
I guess just from how I read it, that's how I took it, that he was in the defensive position and Tavore is not going, she's marching in, right? Corolo Dom is the defensive position he wants her to march in, and whatever his plan is going to be. But yeah.
Well, I think it's just. I think that what's maybe got me thinking in that direction is at the very beginning of the book in the map section, there is a map of what I would imagine what section 2 is describing. It's kind of like a bird's eye view.
You're talking about this? Oh, fuck, that ain't working.
Yeah, I know which page you're talking
Right
about.
before the dramatis personae.
Yeah. And honestly, when I first read this chapter, I was very, very lost. And I think it was just another one of those tired things. I was tired. But it was this part. It was this explanation of what Sha'ik is seeing and envisioning for the battlefield. And I'm like, but I don't envision it. I'm lost. And like it just kind of set the tone for the rest of the chapter. And it was frustrating. But then once I realized that it's the map at the beginning of the book, it helped to take my visual brain and apply it to the words that are taking place. And it very much is Ibalar Gorge, just out in Rariku. So that's kind of what makes me think, I guess the opposite side is that they're coming in. Dom seems to have this idea that he's going to get Tavore where he wants her, et cetera, et cetera. But if I'm Tavore, right, and I have studied this scenario so many times, and I know exactly what Dom is doing, I know a way out. He doesn't. I have the element of surprise now. So if I walk into it and playing exactly to his confidence, to his ego, he is now no longer able to be. He goes from a defensive position to an offensive.
I can see that changing. But the only thing I would throw out to you right now is that Tavore does not know yet what she is walking into.
Right. But I think that based on the meticulous study that was so beautifully set up for us at the beginning of the book, not the book, God damn it,
sub-book?
the chapter.
Yeah, chapter, whatever. Yeah.
That she is going to recognize as soon as it starts to take place. As soon as she sees that battlefield, she's going to go, fuck.
I can agree with that to an extent, but I think she's going to say, if I were you, this is what I would want to do, and I'm not going to let you do that.
So you think she's just going to stand and not enter the basin? She's just going to ring around?
I mean, she's still going to engage, but whatever he tries, I think she's going to somehow shut down or attempt to anyways. She's going to have an answer or an attempted answer for whatever he's going to try. Whether it's going to work or not, I don't know. I'm changing my tune here for what I thought was going to happen before. I think I don't really know, because maybe it's just going to blow up in her face. I don't know.
Maybe. I mean, I guess here's where we say it in our episode. We'll just have to read on and find out. The beautiful thing is I mean, this is chapter 18. So, I mean, we really only have 6 chapters left?
Something like that. And, yeah.
Come mid-August, we'll be ready to go.
Yeah. I will say these are my favorite episodes when you and I disagree a little bit. Because it's fun when we have different perspectives. Yeah.
Well, and then it all comes together to make a broader picture, right?
Yeah. My next thought here, I bet this makes you excited, the possibility of the House of the Whirlwind.
It does. It does make me excited.
I figured you would have a little chubby for that.
Not a little chubby.
A big one?
Yes.
This part where, they're talking about how they had taken the war away from the rebels, the Empress, the Empire, and they made it their own small war within their family, right? And to me, that just feels like that is more fuel for my theory between the 3 siblings that I don't even remember when I conjured that up, but it feels like there's more credibility towards it.
Yeah, and I think that it kind of serves a dual purpose, right? not only does it fuel your theory, but it also kind of, again, embellishes that parallel that I've noticed between light, dark, and shadow, all being siblings, and this.
Yeah.
It almost makes me think how much of this is orchestrated. Like, how many gods are manipulating things to make it so that this ends up the way that it ends up?
I don't know. I have a question for you now. I'm just kind of thinking of this. If you had to align Gnos, Felus, and Tavore with light, dark, shadow, how would you do that? Who would correspond to what?
You're already way ahead of me, but I will give you your answer.
Have you thought about this?
Yes, I have.
Okay. I don't know how I would do it. I feel like Gnos would be light. I feel like Felison would be dark, and I feel like Tavore would be shadow.
Right. That's exactly what I would think as well, because,
Okay.
and that goes back to the first section where she got out of his shadow and became his shadow. We'll talk about it. And that's kind of what leads me to believe something that is pretty big that I was telling you when we were hanging out. Again, we'll get to that, but I'm excited to talk about that.
All right.
Yeah.
Next thought here is about Lorik,
Yeah.
where it says he's not only a mortal man. And I guess I don't remember, did we or did you theorize that Lorik was Ostrich? I don't remember.
No, nobody did. He was guarding the Leosin Warren with that demon or creature or whatever that the Emaths fought, because Osric is gone. He's missing, right? He's MIA. But Lorik himself is a Leosin. He is an elder race.
All right. And then it talks about how Lorik's eyes flickered, and he said that Hebrik grieved for her sacrifice. And just that, the way that's worded, I kind of wonder if that was just a lie he made up on the spot.
I would agree with you based on their last conversation, right? Like, they revealed a lot of things to each other. So I think that maybe it's just like a bros before hoes type thing. I don't know. Like, he's not going to reveal information because they agreed not to.
All right. And moving on here, Lorik talking, about Leomin and Corbolo Dom, and more so about Corbolo Dom's flaw. It's the one of sequence. Victory precedes slaughter, not the other way around. And I thought on that, and I think that makes sense to me, because if you want to go out and just be reckless and like try to kill everybody, you're probably not going to. You're gonna make stupid mistakes that are gonna get you killed, your guys killed. So you gotta focus on the execution of the plan and the tactics, so that the fight doesn't turn on you. And then you can, you execute all these small details that allow you to slaughter the other side.
Right. Yeah. As they talk about a little bit later about, the execution comes in the planning phase when they're all in the tent.
Next out here, Sha'ik, she cuts Lorik off quite a bit here in this section. And to me, I feel like this is maybe Felson showing through a little bit more in these instances than Sha'ik, just with her impatience and maybe like being a little bit less mature. I think it would probably serve her better to listen to Lorik here, I think. Talking about the culling and just all the other different times, she cuts him off. I don't know, what is it, like 3, 4, 5 times here? I don't know, that's a number of times anyways.
Yeah, but I mean, she's frustrated, right? She's not getting any answers. Nobody wants to open up. Nobody is telling her anything, I mean, we find out that she, is essentially having the whirlwind quest to try to like pick up on people's movements and their thoughts and minds and things like that. But as we find out, the whirlwind is not sharing that information.
I just think a little patience here would maybe do her, at least let Lorik finish his sentence,
Yeah. I guess that's fair. I just think she's young and inexperienced and doesn't really know how to command.
Fellison, yes. But I don't think so much Sha'ik. And I think that's just why I feel like Fellison is shining through more in those instances than Sha'ik.
So you still think that Sha'ik is reborn?
I mean, that's what we've heard this whole way through.
And you don't think that Fellowson Younger's section with Lorik makes you think differently?
I guess maybe we'll have to discuss that when we get there. I'm not remembering offhand.
And it's almost kind of funny because I took a pie for this very thing, right? Now I'm almost kind of wondering, like, did I even need that pie? Because this is making me think otherwise.
I guess, I mean, I think she was reborn.
Okay, fair enough.
My last thought here is where was it Mathok? Mathok's talking about how they have one person who's capable of hot and cold iron, and it's Toblakai.
Yeah.
It totally makes sense.
Yes, I totally agree. Yeah, I think that Toblakai, as soon as they said hot and cold iron, I'm like, yep.
That makes sense.
He's methodical and he will
rage. Yeah, definitely. That's all I got for that section here. So yeah.
Awesome. All right. So we've got section 3 here. Karab Billion the Nulas was buried in sand so he could cool off from the day's heat. He was the sixth son of a disposed chief of the Pardu and had been a wanderer for most of his adult life. When Leoman had found him, he was being dragged behind a horse by 3 Grawl warriors. Leoman had purchased Karab's freedom and took him to a local tribe he had never heard of before. The healer there was an old woman who had taken Karab to a rock spring pool where he lay there while she worked a ritual of mending and healing. Karab never learned the reason why Leoman did what he did, and he would never ask Leoman of the flails, for he knew one thing for certain. For Leoman, he who he had sworn loyalty to, he would give his life. They had laid side by side in the sand until late afternoon. They sat up as they saw the first outriders appear, panning out as they ventured onto the pan of cracked salts and clay. Karab hissed that there were Wiccans. Leoman added that there were Seti among the Wiccans as well. Leoman cursed as he noticed that the Kundral were also amongst the group of Wiccans and Seti riders. Karab observed that the vanguard rode close to the scouts. Leoman is heard saying that they'll have to do something about that. Without another word, they edged back from the crest and out of sight from the outriders, began filling in the holes they had laid in with sand. They made their way back to their horses, and as Leoman mounted, he told Karab that they would strike tonight. Karab nodded. Sha'ik would know that she had been defied. This was their land, and the invaders shouldn't be left to walk in uncontested. No, the sands would drink their blood, giving voice this night to the Reaper's dark promise. We got a new character. Never heard of this dude before, so that was kind of cool.
Yeah.
It was really cool to get just an eensy bit more about Leoman here, and it seems that what he did was an act of kindness, wouldn't you say?
Oh, rescuing him?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it would suck being drugged behind a horse for however long.
3 days or something like that. Oh, never mind. By 3 Grawl. Yeah. The only other thing that I had for this very short section is they were filling in the holes in the sand, and I love this because it's not something you really think about when you're going through and you're reading this, even in Deadhouse Gates. And I'm sure that in everyone's mind, they're seeing the environment as being the desert, but they're not really taking in the account of how oppressive the heat is. And this was just a very nice extra detail about staying cool in this very oppressive environment. And also, they're just staying cool while they're waiting for the 14th Army.
I wonder how far down they had to dig because everything, the sand's got to be hot still.
Yeah, I would imagine that they would have. I mean, it said that he was getting chilly. His sweat had rolled down his back and into the sand. So I would imagine it was probably maybe 3 or 4 feet deep with just his head above, buried himself in sand, really.
Making a foxhole.
I just thought that was a nice touch. But outside of that, I didn't have any thoughts. As I feel towards the end of the chapter, things kind of start ramping up a little bit.
All right. Yeah, I don't think I've got anything to add for that section there. So, ready for my second?
Yeah.
All right. Lork stood near the trail that led to Toblakai's glade. A small hand gesture revealed an unveiling of sorcery that vanished just as quickly as it arrived. He was satisfied and headed down the trail. She might be distracted, but her goddess wasn't. He could sense the increased attention that quested after him, trying to track his movements. It was getting hard to elude them, especially since they were coming from multiple places. Febril and Camus Brulot were becoming more nervous, and Bidithal didn't need any fuel for his own paranoia. All these signs of increased restlessness proved to Lorik that whatever plans were out there were close to coming to a head, one way or another. He did not expect to discover Sha'ik so unprepared. She had dropped hints that she was aware of what was happening in the camp, including the ability to defeat his disguises used to cover his travels. There was information that if she knew, or even suspected, would have triggered a deadly response. He thought to himself that some places must remain off limits to her. He had expected her to ask more dangerous questions. Where was Felison? Or maybe she didn't ask because she already knew. That also meant that she knew what Bidithal had done to her, and she did not care. Dusk came quickly. He could see how his dusty tracks, and to his relief, let me try that again. Dusk came quickly, and he could see his dusty tracks, and to his relief, he was still alone. Not that Sha'ik needed a trail to follow him. He could feel some sort of investment here, almost as if it had been sanctified. And if that had really happened, then there might be a blind spot in the eye of the whirlwind goddess. But none of that answered why Sha'ik did not ask about Felison. Then he thought that he was the blind one. Sha'ik's obsession was Tavore. As the days passed and the armies became closer, the more her obsession grows. With that, so does her doubt and perhaps fear. And buried deeper is another secret. She knows Tavore. That knowledge had guided everything since her rebirth. Recalling the army of the apocalypse within the sight of the walls of the holy city, retreating into the heart of Raraku. Was that a flight in terror? The glade appeared before him, the ring of trees with their unhuman eyes that stared at the young woman on the ground before them. She didn't look up when she spoke to him. She asked how one would tell apart the cult of murderers of Bidithal and Corbolo Dam. Camp is crowded, and she is happy she is here. Felison the Younger asked if he had spoken to her today. He said he had talked to her, and that she was feeling overwhelmed with the concerns over the upcoming fight. Felison cut him off and had a small smile and said her mother had not asked about her. Lorik could only say no. Felison the Younger said she knew then, and figures that Bidithal is close to exposing the plotters. They need him, either to join the conspiracy or stand aside from it. Mother needs him to play out his role. Lorik said he was not sure about that, and then closed his mouth. Felison the Younger said, in that case, the whirlwind goddess has stolen love from her soul. Oh well. She wasn't really her mother anyway. It was just a role she had assumed because it amused her to do so. Lorik said this wasn't true. She saw her suffering. She interrupted Lorik again and said she was the first to see her when she returned, was reborn. It was dumb luck. Before that day, Sha'ik never noticed her. And why should she? She was one of 1,000 orphans. Lorik said reborn and returned to the land of the living. Felison laughed, saying, he always was striving. She knew then, as he must know now, that Sha'ik reborn was not the same person as Sha'ik elder. Lorik said it didn't matter. The goddess chose her. Again, Felison the Younger interrupted and said because she died, or was killed. He didn't see the truth like she did. In the faces of Leomin and Toblakai, she saw their uncertainty. They didn't know if their plan would work. The goddess chose her out of necessity. Lorik said it didn't matter. Bellicin the Younger said perhaps not to him, but she saw Sha'ik Elder up close. She looked right past her, and at that moment, Bellicin the Younger knew, even though she was a child, she knew the truth of her and her goddess. Lork asked what that truth was, and she said that they were all nothing more than slaves. Sha'ik will use them one and all to achieve her goals. Beyond that, their lives mean nothing, but with Sha'ik reborn, she thought she saw something different. However, the goddess is too strong, her will too absolute. Poison that is indifference, and she knows how that tastes. You can ask any orphan and get the same answer. They've all suckled at that bitter tip. Tears fell down Lork's face, and he could not stop them. Bellicin the Younger continued. She said they were all orphans. Bidithal lost his temple and cult. The same for Heberick and Corvolo Dam, who were once equals in rank with great soldiers like Coltane or Whiskey Jack. Fevril, did Lork know he murdered his father and mother? Toblakai, who lost his people, and the rest of them here, they were all children of the Malazan Empire, who cast the Empress away in exchange for an insane goddess who seeks destruction and wants to drink a sea of blood. Lork said he too was an orphan. She didn't answer as they both heard his words, Osric, which only left Leoman of the Flails. She wondered if he would save them. Would he get that chance? He was the only one among them unchained. No doubt the goddess claims him, but it is an empty claim. He, Lorik, sees that, doesn't he? Leoman was their last hope. They were silent as night arrived. In the dark, it seemed as though the eyes of the sculptures had taken on life. He said those faces were Tlanimus. Bellicin the Younger said Leoman had told her he, Toblakai, Karsa, thought they were his gods, but he warned her to say nothing to Toblakai. She said she wasn't foolish enough to get between a Toblakai and his gods. Lork said there was nothing simple about that simple warrior. Bellicin the Younger said, just as he was not a simple high mage. He has choices to make, and if he waits too long, they will be made for him, and he will not like it. Lork said he could say the same thing about her. Bellicin the Younger said then they still had more to talk about. They should eat so they don't get drunk on wine.
So do you see where I was talking about Bellicin Younger saying that she was able to differentiate the two Sha'iks?
Between Elder and Reborn?
Yeah, and that they're not the same person.
Sure, a little bit, but...
I mean, not that I care that I got pied. I mean, that's not where I'm going. It's just more or less like, just to make sure that I have it correct in my head canon.
But do you think, like, some of it is just the vessel that she occupies? That is maybe some of the difference?
I think the goddess Whirlwind is just picking who best serves her purpose, her will. And at that moment in time, Sha'ik Elder had passed away, and Sha'ik Reborn, Bellicin, was just there because she has anger in her heart for her sister.
I guess I kind of feel like Sha'ik and like the Whirlwind Goddess are like the same thing.
No, I see them as separate entities.
I don't see the Whirlwind as a conscious thing.
I do.
Interesting. Lots of divisiveness in this episode.
I know, right? Yeah, I think the Whirlwind is a manifestation of somebody. And I think that based on, was it last chapter 17, maybe 16, chapter 16, with the part where Anrak is talking about his crime, about painting Kilava in a very realistic fashion. He talks about how the Talani Mass were, you know, they had rituals of destruction or whatever that term was. And it made me think of the Book of Dryjana. So I think that the book was written by a mass, and whatever this whirlwind is just like, hey, I like this, I'm going to use it. You know what I mean? Like as a playbook. I don't know. It doesn't really make sense to me, but like there's just something about the whole rituals of destruction thing and, you know, the goddess's will just keeps like drawing me there. So I'm just wondering if the Book of Dryjana was written by an Amass, because rituals usually give me the sense of like organization, right? Like it's a recipe. Boil and trouble and good and double, or whatever the fuck that saying is. You know what I mean? Like, I'm gonna make a potion. Like, when I think of ritual, I think of like there are methodical steps.
Right now, I'm really kind of hung up on this. So, like you think the whirlwind is a conscious thing.
Yeah, somebody's controlling this fragment of Emerlon. Somebody has control of it. And they're bent on destruction. Like they're
Okay.
using this Warren for their will.
To me, that's different though. If somebody's controlling it versus the thing itself being, for lack of a better term, alive.
No, I don't think. No,
you don't think it's alive.
no, I don't think the world. I think the whirlwind is a manifestation of somebody.
Okay.
Like me having the ability to conjure a tornado, and I can just do whatever I wanted with it. But
so do you think that like somebody could control like the Warren of Shadow beyond like sitting on the throne of it? I guess.
Well, yeah, I mean, because like this glass represents culled Emerlon, right? I throw it on the ground, it breaks because of some sibling rivalry, whether that's with Dark or with the Leozans. You can control a fragment of this shattered Warren. I can control a fragment of this shattered Warren. But there's two extremely big pieces. Shadow Throne has usurped what I would imagine the biggest piece. And what is the whirlwind is the other largest piece. So just like Amanus and Cotillion are driving the Warren of Shadow, the human Warren of Shadow, somebody is driving the Elder Warren of culled Emerlane, the fragment that is the whirlwind. Like, whoever's driving it could stop it from being a whirlwind and do something else with it.
But then what purpose would there be for Sha'ik to even be around?
It's a tool. They're a god. You know what I mean? Like,
Isn't Sha'ik, she's a goddess, right?
No.
Yes.
They keep saying goddess, the whirlwind goddess, not Sha'ik.
Who's Sha'ik? Who's Sha'ik?
Sha'ik is just a pawn in this very illustrious game.
I'm not buying that for a penny, man.
Like I said, and that's kind of where the divisiveness continues. But that would explain Fellows and Younger's perspective of the difference between the Sha'iks. The Sha'ik is just the high fist of the Apocalypse army. That's it. That's all she is. There's this illusion, culled Emerlane, that she has some type of power. And maybe there's a little bit of control that she can use with the whirlwind, but I don't think that the whirlwind is giving back to Sha'ik. Just a false sense of security, really, that Sha'ik can do anything at all.
It's just interesting how we read the same thing and get two completely different ideas.
You got to remember that, like, this is 4 books in. All of the world building, it doesn't take long for you to just go astray. And I think that's the hard part about reading this for the first time, is that's exactly what could be happening here. We could just be diverging in completely different directions.
That's true. Yeah, that's true.
But I think that it makes for good entertainment. And I'm sure the vets of the series out there are being like, you know what? I thought the same thing. Or, I don't know what the fuck you guys are talking about. Like, what did you smoke? That is so fucking wrong. But it's cool. I don't know. It's just, that's the sense that I am getting. I am getting that the whirlwind is out to do something. It's out for something. It wants just to kill.
It's really driving this conversation today a lot, which is fun.
And I have more around the whirlwind, which I'm sure is fucking wrong. But just this whole, like, it's bent on destruction. And this whole Emass thing about rituals of destruction, like I can't get over that. That's the part that like kind of like your bone hunters thing. I have this like weird feeling that part of the whirlwind is Emass. Part of the whirlwind. Like Dryjana was an Emass who wrote a ritual just about destruction. Because I mean it's a book, right? I thought it was fake. Like I'll be first to admit it's definitely not fake. I do believe that this book was written. And I think that whoever took over this fragment of Gerald Amerlon, this Elder Warren, uses that book like a manuscript, like a code of honor, or you know what I mean? Like I agree with this book, so this is what I'm gonna do. This is all I care about.
Interesting conversation before we even bring up my first comment here.
Yeah, it's almost I don't know, would you say it's spiteful?
I don't know, I guess.
Would you consider spite to be destructive?
I mean, it certainly could be.
That might be a hint as to where I may go with this.
All right.
Okay, go ahead. I'm not stealing your thunder anymore. Goodbye.
You're good, man. You're good. First thought here, I kind of answered my own question with this, but Lorik thought to himself, some places must remain off limits to her. He expected her to ask more dangerous questions. Where was Felison? Or maybe she didn't ask because she already knew. And at first, I was a little confused. You know, I wasn't sure I was understanding. Is he thinking that she or Sha'ik already knows where Felison is, like in her mind or whatever? And I felt pretty confident that, like, at least right now, Felison's not the dominant personality, like, of the two of them. Then I realized he meant like Felison the younger. Man, Sha'ik. It's where it says this also meant she knew what Bidithal had done to her to Felison the younger, and she did not care. And while I really liked this chapter as a whole, I liked it a lot, but it was pretty dark.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of hopelessness and darkness to it. And I was just like, man, Sha'ik, you are just cold. And not like cold iron cold. Like that's just like indifference to rape or sexual assault. Like, I don't know how you look the other way to that.
Sure.
No matter who you are.
I'm going to be a devil's advocate again. Here's some more division.
Go for it.
The section with Haboric, the whirlwind not being allowed into his temple. You don't think that justifies a bad word, but explains this?
How so?
Because the whirlwind is intentionally keeping it from Felison, Sha'ik, Reborn.
I think Felison and Sha'ik are two different people within the same body. So I don't think Felison would care what happened to Felison the younger, but Sha'ik does not.
And okay, got it. And do you think that's because the whirlwind is puppeteering Sha'ik?
I think she's like repressing it or keeping it from her to some extent.
So that you do think that there are, like in the whirlwind's perspective, there are safeguards from keeping Felison from knowing events that would, I don't know how I'm trying to say this. I think that we can agree that the whirlwind is keeping things from Sha'ik or from Felison.
Trying to. I mean, it's probably not a 100% catch-all.
No.
Yes, I would agree with that.
Did you ever stop to wonder why?
Because Sha'ik wants to be in control, I think. She doesn't want... I wonder, like, if Felison found out about that, if she was, like, mad enough or upset enough or had enough emotion or something, if she could take over control and, in turn, repress Sha'ik to... Maybe not 100%, but maybe it's, 75-25 or something like that, 80-20, whatever.
Yeah. Like it becomes an Amanus and a Cotillion situation where it's like co-owned.
What was that?
Where it's like it matches Cotillion and Amanus, where it's like there's a partnership in ruling instead of it just being one.
Yeah, kind of.
Okay. All right.
The Holy City, they talk about retreating to the walls of the Holy City. That would be Aaron, correct? I didn't remember if that was Aaron or not.
I think the army of Apocalypse, and with insight, yes, I believe you are correct, Aaron.
Okay. Again, Felson cuts off Lorik again, has this small smile. This is Felson the Younger here. Well, I guess it's kind of Felson the Younger throughout the whole thing. Said her mother had not asked about her. And again, I just think that's sad. And I think Felson, not Sha'ik, she would definitely care about this, but she's not getting that opportunity to. Just like she's had everything else kind of taken from her. This is just kind of one more thing.
Yeah.
I just think that's sad.
And as you're talking about it, it kind of draws maybe a parallel between back in Skullcap, the mining, the Ototero mines. Beneth was, giving Felazan a ton of Durhang,
Yeah.
right? Just to keep her
Numb.
mind away from things. And it's almost kind of the same thing here. I guess the way that I'm thinking about it is that the whirlwind is not getting Felazan high, but definitely making her not see things. So, I don't know.
It's a messed up deal.
Yeah.
And then, Felson the Younger, she continues and saying that the whirlwind goddess stole the love from her soul. Oh, well, she wasn't really her mother anyway. It was just a role she assumed because it amused her to do so. And again, like, the whole thing is just makes me sad because Felson the Younger's, not only is Felson a kid, but Felson the Younger is a younger kid, right? But she's pretty smart to what's going on. Like, she's not dumb. She knows what the situation is. And it's such a bad situation that she's in. I have a really bad feeling for her.
Think so?
In her future. Yes.
You think that she'll go down in flames, though? Like taking Bidithal out?
No.
You don't think she'll get that? That's just...
I don't know. I think there's a good chance that she's going to die or get killed. I don't know if she's going to take somebody out doing it. But just how indifferent Sha'ik is with what she's putting her through or allowing her to be put through, why would she care if she dies? It's like she said, they're just meat, basically, right? Like, they're just slaves to be used to her own ends.
Right.
She's not going to care what happens. So it's going to bum me out if that's what happens.
Yeah, I guess it's kind of one of those things where, like, I don't really want to think about it, but I would agree with you wholeheartedly, for sure.
I would say with my Magic 8-Ball, the outlook is not looking good.
I think yeah.
And then we get this, this where she says, however, the goddess is too strong, her will too absolute, the poison that is indifference, and she knows how that tastes. You can ask any orphan and get the same answer. And I felt like Sha'ik is cold-hearted, but I don't know if we've really had anything so concrete as this to just, like, know for sure. But I think this kind of defines it, and it's kind of upsetting that she just allows this to happen.
Yeah, because, she doesn't care. As you've said, they're just used for her will, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Bending to her will.
To me, it's like, so like me and my wife were, I think, I don't know if maybe it was before you got here when you were down, but my wife's friend that was over with you.
Yeah.
We were talking about, like, and I think it was more like, she just found out she's pregnant, but, like, she said she would choose, like, her partner over the child.
Yeah.
And I assume that would probably be different, like, once she's given birth, like, you have the actual baby, like, in your hands versus, like, you're carrying it. It's not ready, that type of thing. And maybe at, like, the time I didn't really think of it in the same terms. And, like, in that sense, I would agree with her. But, like, after your kid's born, like, I would give up whatever for my kids, right?
Yep.
I've had 38 years or whatever. And if I had to give that up for my kid, like, any parent would do that. And that's just not, Sha'ik's not the same.
No, she's definitely not.
So that's kind of a roundabout thing.
No, it's good. It's hard because Malazan, the elder, right? I mean, her body is being used. Her mind is being blockaded. She's not being there's not full transparency there, you know. So I don't know, she's just kind of going around doing what she thinks she's supposed to be doing, but it's not it's very cold because there's information that she's not been given.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. She asks, did she know that Febrile murdered his father and mother? Is that something we found out about before? I don't remember.
I feel like in Dead House Gates near the end where we meet the three high priests, it was maybe briefly stated. I feel like this is maybe a little shocking, but at the same time, I feel like I've heard it before. If those two are allowed to exist in the same plane.
I couldn't remember if this is something that we knew or not, and I didn't know if you remembered.
I'm pretty sure it was said in Dead House Gates, but I could be wrong.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think this is my last thought here, but dude, this sea of blood, where they're talking about this got me kind of excited. They are all children of the Malazan Empire who cast aside the Empress in exchange for an insane goddess who seeks destruction and wants to drink a sea of blood.
Yep.
That got me excited because I was like, oh man, I've had my little theory here about there being the ocean coming back. And I was like, holy crap. What if it's a freaking ocean of blood?
And not water.
Not water, dang.
Yeah, that would be real fucked up. It's a lot of blood.
It would be a lot of blood.
That would be a lot of blood.
I don't know if it'll be quite that crazy, but there'll be a lot of blood spilled, I think.
Yeah. I feel like I had a thought, but now I don't remember it.
Maybe it'll come back to you.
Yeah. Maybe. Oh, yeah. It was about this part where as the sun sets and the stars come out, and this whole part about the eyes of the sculptures had taken life. He said faces were, or that she said something about that they haunt one of them or something like that.
Sure. I guess maybe I don't remember.
Yeah. But I mean, it kind of gives the sense that, these things that Toblakai created are alive. Not all of them, but maybe one of them.
Sabal?
No, Sabal is...
Oh, yeah, he cut her in half. Maybe he's dragging her around.
Yeah. She's in his backpack right now.
Yep. Little camping trip.
Yeah. But I just kind of wonder, and maybe I talked about this in chapter 16, maybe I didn't, but with Anrak depicting Kalava coming to life, is it possible that Karza unintentionally did the same thing? Maybe Bayroth or Delim is inhabiting the stone, their spirit, even though I think that they're in the sword.
They're in the, yeah, I don't know that they could be in two places at once.
So maybe one of the seven is 6 now is keeping an eye on the girl while the other 5 do whatever they're doing. I don't know. So I just kind of got the impression that they're not alone.
It did seem like something was going on there.
Yeah. But there wasn't really enough details to really say anything otherwise, but yeah.
That's all I got here. You ready to move on?
Yeah.
All right.
So
we're about half-ish way, at least by page count on the document.
Yeah, so we're nearing towards the shorter guys. Section 5 here. Sha'ik was pissed as she was denied entrance to Heborik's tent. Wards flickered from her collision with them. She stuffed her anger down and told Haborik that if he didn't let her in, she would smite him with the power of the whirlwind goddess. A moment of silence, and then she heard Haborik tell her to enter. She stepped forward and entered. There was a pressure and then a sudden absence. Terrifying, but yet the clearest her mind has been, compared to the gloom from before. She thought how nice it was to be free. She asks Haborik or Ghost Hands what he had done. Haborik said that the goddess within Sha'ik was not welcome in his temple. She wondered about that word, temple. Anger was building in her as memories of the whirlwind had suppressed the memories as the memories the whirlwind had suppressed came roaring back. She thought of Beneth and called him a bastard for what he had done. She thought of Bowden, Culp, and now Haborik. His jade and tiger-striped hands were guiding her into his tent. Haborik took the small lamp that was in the room and used it to light some dung. He explained there was little need for light in his sanctifying makeshift temple on behalf of Treach. Sha'ik looked up when she heard Treach's name. She saw Tabork squatting in front of her. She recalled that he had squatted like that day, so long ago, in Judgment's Round, when hood sprites had come to foretell of Fenner's casting down. She looked up and saw his cat eyes. She thought to herself that he could see. Haborik told Sha'ik that Treach had ascended into godhood. Sha'ik told him not to call her that and to call her Felazan. She hugged herself and told Haborik that Sha'ik waits for her outside of this tent, beyond Haborik's wards. Haborik asked if she would return to that embrace. Felazan said that she didn't really have a choice. She bolted upright as a sudden realization struck her that she hasn't seen or heard from Felazan younger in weeks, and asked where she was. Haborik moved as a cat would and said that the goddess must know. Felazan said that if the goddess knew, then she hasn't said anything. Haborik began to ask why the goddess wouldn't say anything when he had a sudden realization. She felt her own answering fear. She began to ask Haborik what he knew, but was stopped as he was escorting her out of the tent. He told her that they had spoken and everything was fine. They had spoken about the adjunct and her legions, as well as the secret plans of Febril. They should keep their eye on, and for that she must rely on Bidithal. She called his name, but Haborik relented and pushed her beyond the flap of his tent, through a flare of words. Sha'ik righted herself and thought to herself that she must have stumbled. She is reminded of her conversation with Haborik, and that all was well. She turned from his tent and made her way back to the palace. Overhead, the stars of the desert sky were shimmering, as they often did when the goddess was close. She wondered what had brought the goddess so close. Perhaps it was to keep a protective eye on her chosen one. She was unmindful, as well as her goddess, of the barely visible shape that slipped out of Haborik's tent, following into the trees like a blur, unmindful also of the smell that barbed shaped followed, westward of the city's edge, and then onto the trail towards a distant glade. So
I don't like it.
I don't either.
I don't, because I'm afraid you might be right.
Might be right about what?
Well, I didn't remember it talking about the goddess and Sha'ik being so distinctly separate here, like you have summarized. I don't like it.
I'm sorry.
Because to me they've just been one entity.
I mean, that's how it has been up until this point. You know, and there's always this like question, like, are they the same? Are they not the same? Blah blah blah. So yes, there's definitely, I think Sha'ik is just a pseudo. It's a pseudo name. It's just a title that was given to Felazan, and Felazan is purely just a puppet with the guise of Sha'ik.
I don't want to believe it. I don't want to. I don't want to.
This is where I talk about the goddess, the whirlwind goddess, because it's been a thing to refer to the whirlwind as a goddess from its very first introduction. But it's just now in this section, in this chapter, where it's kind of making me think a little bit, because, and this is what I know, the whirlwind is a fragment of the Elder Warren of Corald Emerlane. Shadow, Elder Shadow. And remember in the chapter where Onrak and Troll set the Hounds of Darkness free? And then they talk about how the Hounds of Shadow are their counterpoint. Do you remember that?
A little, yeah. Yeah, I remember them getting free. I don't know if I remember that conversation, but I remember.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So in this context, I wonder if the whirlwind is the shadow of something or someone else. Do you follow me?
Maybe. I don't know. I don't know if I want to.
So if the Hounds can have a shadow, and also what causes a shadow to exist?
Light.
Exactly. So the sun in the holy desert could be referred to as Tis Leozin, born of fire, sun, light, blah.
I don't know if that's a stretch or not, but I'll go with it for now.
Yeah, I don't know. It very well could be. I'm just saying in this particular environment,
Sure. I'll go with it.
because I think that kind of comes up a little bit at the very last section, but we'll get there. But anyway, if this is true, right? So like if every darkness that light is cast upon has a shadow, like it does exist in this real world, and if the whirlwind is a fragment of shadow, then that means that there has to be something that is casting it, right? Like there has to be an object that is now casting the whirlwind, if that makes any damn sense.
You need something to cast that shadow.
Right. So in this case, we'll just say it's the sun, because I don't have a light source, because that hasn't been revealed yet. I'm just operating between dark and shadow now. From what I understand and what I remember, like the first thing that comes to mind, and we talk about Tavore becoming a shadow out of Paran's shadow and becoming her own shadow, and being that in order for a shadow to exist, there needs to be something to cast it, which makes me think that they are chained together, which would be like siblings. Siblings are chained together. And in this case, I'm talking sisters. Okay, so we've got Felazin and we've got Tavore.
Yeah.
But also, there are Lady Envy, right? She is tied to House Dark. So I think she is the caster. And I think her sister, Lady Spite, I would consider to have a destructive personality. And being that Envy is associated with House Dark, that maybe Lady Spite is the whirlwind.
I don't know what to think of that. It seems like a lot.
It's really, I think Lady Spite is using the Book of Dryjana, who was written by Animas, to just wreak havoc. Because again, what do we see from Lady Envy? Oh, I can because I'm God. I've lived for a long time, blah, blah, blah. Right? Maybe this is way that Lady Spite gets back at, for whatever reason, just because she can. To be spiteful?
We haven't even met her yet.
No, but maybe this is how she's revealed. I don't know. It's, again, I'm sure it's probably one of those things where it's just like, Justin, the fuck are you doing? I feel like
it's a pretty big stretch, but you never know.
I mean, it's built on the whole shadow thing with Tavore, and the whole, shadow needs a caster. Those are linked together, right? Like you can't have those without the other. Makes me think of siblings, sisters, brothers. And then there's a parallel here. House Dark, Lady Envy, her sister, Spite, Tavore, Felazin. I don't know. But that's just kind of the whole goddess thing makes me think that it's female. So there's just all these like little small things that are making me think this.
I guess we'll see what comes forth. We're running out of time. We're running out of time. We're running out of chapters, so we'll see what happens.
Right, yeah. It's got to be happening soon. We'll see what happens. I'm probably wrong. I'm sure Lady Spite is something else. I could see her doing it. Hey, I'm gonna take over this whirlwind fragment because fuck you all, right?
Sure.
Spiteful. And I think that all of those supporting things as we read out, which could very well lead to other things, could be missed whatever. But anyway, next thought, this whole judgment round thing, this thought that the way that Haboric is posed reminds her of this. And remember back when we read the Deadhouse Gates prologue that we were just so like blown away by, we were always really curious about what the sprites had to say to Haboric. And now we kind of we do get confirmation of what was said. And they were saying that Fenner was going to be cast out. But also it's interesting. Why would Hood inform Haboric about this? Like, when you're reading that prologue, it almost seems like they're coming to attack him, right?
Well, it was just a bunch of flies, right?
Yeah, this was like the demon that was all flies at the beginning. Like, you think he's there as like a scare tactic, right? Like, not necessarily to inform. So you kind of think more about it. But why now, knowing this, why would Hood inform Haboric about it? I can't imagine that Hood and Fenner had beef with each other purely based on Hood's actions towards Brucalion, trying to recruit him to his house, right?
Yeah.
And also, I remember from Memories of Ice that the gods were teaming up to take out or take on the crippled god. What we thought, or what I remember in the prologue of Deadhouse Gates, is kind of being like a scary thing. You know, the flies bursting and they wouldn't touch anything that wasn't a tattoo or that was not a tattoo. They would touch everything.
But the tattoo. Just as like bare flesh, whatever.
Right. It seemed to really just be a warning, like, hey, your god's going to be cast out. And it kind of makes sense because throughout Deadhouse Gates, he was kind of in this like mopey, depressive type of mentality that like you never really kind of understood. But now this makes sense. Like, this is the reason why he was so mopey.
Never thought of that.
So it'll just be interesting when you go back, or when I go back and read Deadhouse Gates again, I'll have this in my mind. Like, oh yeah, before this book even starts, he's told that his god is going to be cast out. So it's just cool how those like little details just add up over time. The next thought here, Haboric began to ask why the goddess wouldn't say anything, and then he has a sudden realization. And Fellows and Younger mentioned earlier about Bidithal and the night of betrayal, like coming closer. You think that the realization that Haboric had is that Bidithal was successful in usurping? No, I don't know what I was thinking when I wrote this. I don't think this at all. Fuck this.
Okay.
His realization, now that I've read the chapter a little bit more, is that the whirlwind is being deceptive. And that is what Haboric is realizing. That's why he boots her out and says, everything's fine. We didn't talk about anything, you know?
All right.
Lastly, oh no, I have more. This part where perhaps it was to keep a protective eye on her chosen one. And this sounds like the sorceress tendrils reaching out, which gives me the feeling that Sha'ik is not in control of the goddess. Yeah, oh, gotcha. I see what I did there. Feeling that Sha'ik is not in control, or the goddess has chosen someone else, which I don't think that she's moved on to a different puppet. It's funny how like even after rereading the chapter, some of your comments just become obsolete.
Well, you have thoughts at the time.
Yeah. When we're summarizing, I don't know about for you, but for me, when I'm summarizing, my summarizing really is my second time through.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I'm not summarizing it the first time I go through it. No, it's just straight reading it.
Yep. I do the same thing. And then lastly, this barely visible shape that slipped out of Haboric's tent. I would imagine that we can both agree that this is Haboric. I'm just not used to reading descriptions of him being so agile.
I did not think that, actually.
Ooh, what did you think? You think it was like a shadow or like somebody spying?
I kind of felt like it was Bidithal.
You think it was one of Bidithal's people?
I didn't really know what to think. I guess I never thought it was Heberic, I guess. Not that it couldn't have been, but I didn't know who it was, but my first thought didn't go to Heberic, I guess.
I think based on the visible shape that slipped out of Haboric's tent, flowing into the trees like a blur makes me think of cat. And then unmindful also of the smell that the barbed shape followed westward to the city's edge and then onto the trail towards a distant glade. This is Haboric leaving his tent because he's become aware, the realization the whirlwind is not being transparent with Felazan Elder means that Felazan Elder doesn't know anything about Felazan Younger and what's happened. And so it mentions something about a scent in the book, and I don't think that I wrote that down, but he's following the scent of violence that happened, because I'm assuming that just doesn't dissipate to someone of Haboric's gifts.
Yeah, and my mind did not go to Heberick on that, but I don't have anything to combat you onto what I think it was. So
I feel like I've done that a lot this episode.
dude, it's cool. It makes it fun.
Okay.
I'm not against that. That's just not where my mind went, but I don't have a solid answer to give you.
All right. Well, I guess with that being said, I'm ready to move on.
All right. Bidethal sat alone in the corner, mad, although his face held a smile. Sure, Febril had his games, but so did the one-time high priest of the Shadow Cult. Even betrayers could be betrayed. The sands would fold one more time, stirring and shifting the grains as waves would upon a beach. To layer one layer over another, there was no limit to the number of layers Febril and his co-conspirators would soon discover, to their own grief. They sought the warren for themselves. It had taken Bidethal a long time to figure that out, for it had remained in silence between every spoken word. I really like that sentence. This was not a simple struggle for power, it was usurpation. They wanted the warren, but why? A question yet to be answered, but soon it would be. Bidethal knew the chosen one relied on him for this, and he would not fail her. He thought to himself that in what she expected of him, he would deliver. But there are other issues that extend past the Sha'ik and this whirlwind warren she would rule. The shape of the pantheon itself is at stake. His long overdue vengeance against the foreign pretenders who sat upon the throne of shadow. Even now, if he listened closely, he could hear them coming closer and closer. A tremble of fear took his limbs, and shadows scurried away from him, only returning when he settled down again. He continued thinking to himself, Rashan and Mianus and Thyr and Rashan, the three children of the elder warrens, Golain, Emerlan, and Thyrlin. So why is it surprising they were warring with each other again? Didn't they inherit the hatreds of their fathers and mothers? Only a ghost of that fear now remained. He had not called them, nor understood what lay underneath the whirlwind warren. The reason why it was held in one place and nowhere else. Bidethal raised his hands, and an army of shadows grew closer. He called them his children, and began the closing chant. Father, do you remember? We remember. Do you remember the dark? Father, ask it, and close this moment, children. Do you remember the dark? Bidethal smiled. It was a simple question that could be asked of anyone at all, and they might understand, or they might not. But he understood. He thought, do you remember the dark? He spoke out loud, saying he remembered. The shadows disappeared, and Bidethal stood to that nearly inaudible call and shivered. They were getting closer indeed, and he wondered what they would do when they arrived. This was a really cool section.
Yes, it was. Kind of confusing on first read.
For sure.
Very confusing.
But that chant was cool. I like just that do you remember the dark? That gives me goosebumps. I like that.
Mm-hmm.
What do I have for thoughts here? They sought the warren for themselves, assuming this means the whirlwind. That's part of your theory, I assume.
My theory. Which theory do I have? I feel like I have so many fucking of them.
Dude, I don't know. I don't remember what I was thinking when I wrote this. Kind of like you said, sometimes it's just kind of just crap we throw down, right?
Yeah.
We'll just kick that to the side. The way this was written, where Bidethal has a tremble of fear, it took his limbs and the shadows scurried away from him. I just thought that was a really cool visual. So, I almost imagine him standing there and you see the shadows disperse from him. So he's just standing there, and he has no like shadow around him.
I'm going to make you very upset. I don't think that these are actual shadows, like demons or apparitions. I think these are children.
That doesn't make me that upset.
Okay. I think that all of his kids, his orphans, are around and they're called shadows because, again, Erickson is trying to make our minds go somewhere else because he's, a leader of the human Dark Warren. Well, not leader, but a high priest of Rashan. Yes, these are his children. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they are some like supernatural shadows, but I think they're children.
I can get on board with that.
Okay.
Doesn't upset me. This is what I'm willing to put a pie on the line for, Justin, right here in this section. I did not summarize it like it did in the book. But in the book, it says the word beneath. Beneath the sands or beneath the whirlwind warren. The reason why it was held in one place and nowhere else. It's got to be that stupid dragon crucified, chained to that freaking cross. And I will put a pie on it that it is.
But that's not beneath Raraku.
How do we know it's not?
Because it's beneath the Imperial Warren.
I don't care.
Okay. Are you sure you want to take this pie?
Yes.
Oh.
Doubling down on it. I'm doubling down.
It's more far-fetched, in my opinion, than my lady spite thing.
I do not think so at all.
Really?
No.
Come on. Okay, well, give me some supporting things here. What evidence do you have to support that the Otateral dragon is underneath the whirlwind?
It's the only thing that we know is underground. Under something. It's held in one place and nowhere else. I mean, it's in like another warren, or it's like in a bubble or whatever.
If anything, I would imagine that the crippled god would have something to do with the Otateral dragon. More than I would. And that's just because in Memories of Ice, he essentially shut down the Warrens. He made them sick. So he doesn't want his enemies to have power. And an Otateral dragon would totally take that away.
I don't know. My gut is telling me it's that dragon. That's where I just like...
Okay.
When I was reread, I did not have this feeling the first time I read it, but when I was summarizing it, it just like clicked, and I'm like, that's what I'm going with.
But even though it's in a pocket warren underneath the Imperial Warren.
Were they in the Imperial Warren when they found it?
Yeah. Yes. They were in the Imperial Warren.
Well, then this is an easy win for you.
You're really good at wow.
I can't walk it back now.
Yes, you can.
No, I can't.
Your dignity, man. Save it.
No such thing.
I can't do this to you.
You can.
I can't do this. I took a wrongful pie. I'm not going to let you do it.
What if I'm right somehow?
Then I guess you can pie me, but I'm no.
All right. Well, it's a freebie. It's there for you.
That's what happened last time. I don't want freebies. I want to be like so in your face, right? That you're like, yes, Justin.
Begrudgingly.
Yeah, exactly. Like I had to relent with the Book of Dredjana.
I'm not relenting on this.
Okay. All right, sir. It was the Imperial Warren. I mean, maybe I'm doubting myself, maybe like 7%, but I'm pretty sure it was a pocket warren inside of the Imperial Warren.
I don't know, dude. Just the way it was worded, like it just gave me, and maybe it's just supposed to be complete misdirection. And if it is, then I bit hard.
But also in the chapter where the Kundra will talk about where you got your, confirmation of the bone hunters.
There's no confirmation yet.
Well, I'm pretty sure.
I think
I
so
would put a
too,
pie
but
on it. Yeah. But where you came up with that idea, the Kundral had also talked about beneath the sands. You think that they were referring to Otateral dragons?
no, that was not the same at all, I don't feel like.
I guess we'll just have to read on and find out.
I know I hyped this up to our patrons quite a bit, so either they're
You did?
oh yeah, I totally did. I was like, I've got something, guys. And
I think
I'm willing
that
to put a pie on it, and I didn't tell them what it was. I'm making them wait.
I will defer to the patrons. After they hear this episode, if they comment saying no, Derek, do not take this bet, I would highly advise that you listen to them. I will allow this to happen because I feel so bad for you.
I can tell you one thing. I know Jan will want me to take a pie to the face.
No matter what.
No matter what. He will. I can't speak for anybody else, but Jan, it will. I'm sure it will make his day if I take a pie to the face.
Okay, well then fine. I rescind that. I rescind that. Patrons, don't say shit.
Or do,
Because
but whatever.
no, don't say shit. No spoilers, remember. But I'm 100% sure, well, I'm 93, that it existed within a pocket warren, within the Imperial Warren.
Maybe, but why couldn't that be underneath the whirlwind?
The Imperial Warren?
Why not?
Because we already know the origin of the Imperial Warren.
But why couldn't it be under it?
I don't know, dude. You gotta give me more than just you don't know either.
Oh, this is fun.
Yes, it is. Okay, let's move on.
I think that was the last thing I had here, but just the way that was worded, it was just one of those things that just like, God, it just connected in my brain. And if I'm wrong,
It's just for whatever reason, there it is. Okay.
And if I'm wrong, then that's fine.
I mean, if you're right, I will take a pie.
Hey, no baseball player hits 1,000, so
well, I guess you gotta swing eventually.
even 333 is pretty good. So
All right. Well, here's section 7. There are 11 in all of his chosen. Corbolo Dom laid back on some cushions, studying the silent figures in front of him. He was drinking wine, and the woman who had amused him earlier this night was asleep on his leg. Not just asleep, but drugged up on enough durhang to keep her asleep for half a day. The 11 killers were pulled from his dog slayers. 5 of them had been personal assassins to the holy Faladan in the days before the Empire. They were rewarded with gifts of alchemy and sorcery to maintain their youthfulness. 3 were Malazan, Corbolo Dom's own, created long ago, when he realized that he now had cause to worry about the claw. Dom thought about how that cause was strangely alluring, for it was the reason for a multitude of his discoveries and knowledge he had never expected to gain, of things he had considered long dead and gone. There had been 10 such bodyguards once. Evidence for their needs stood before him. 3 of the 10 were left, a result of a brutal process of elimination, leaving only the 3 with the greatest skill. And the most accidental luck had brought them together. The remaining 3 were assassins from various tribes. They had each proved their worth during the chain of dogs. One of the 3 felling Sormoinath at the river Vathar, Tyr. Tom sipped his wine and said to silent figures that Camus Rouleau had chosen them for a singular task that will trigger more tasks to follow. He tells them that they will not get any sleep and to prepare themselves. He instructs that the 2 of them shall stay with him, as he's positive his life will be attempted sometime before the battle takes place. He thought to himself how it wouldn't be him going down, but his 2 bodyguards. He tells them to leave him and waves them goodbye. The 11 assassins bowed in unison and then left. Dom lifted the woman on his leg by her hair and then dropped her head without a concern for her well-being. He got up and went to a side chamber closed with a silk sheet. He stepped inside and Camus Rouleau was pacing. Dom leaned up against a pillar and asked Rouleau what was causing the fear, as he admits that he's quit caring. Rouleau responds to say that that was foolish complacency, as does Dom not recognize that they are not the only clever people. Dom confidently replied that in the world, no, but here in Raraku, who was there to fear? Sha'ik had grown less aware of her surroundings. Dom brings up Lorik for various reasons, and Rouleau says that Dom is wrong for those reasons, but admits that it's not Lorik he's worried about. Dom asked who else there was there to fear, and wondered maybe it was Ghost Hands. But that couldn't be, because he was drowning in a pit of Hanabara tea. He brings up that Leoman was gone, even though Dom had his own plans for him when he returned. And then finally Karza, who he predicted is never coming back. The only one that was left was Bidethal. Dom explains that Febrile swore he was close to getting Bidethal into their fold. Febrile just needed to know what Bidethal really desires. Dom suggested that they just offer the man 10,000 orphans. Rouleau kept pacing and explained that it wasn't who they know that he was afraid of, it was who they didn't know. Dom scowled and asked how many hundreds of spies do they have in this camp, not to mention the whirlwind, and asked if she would even permit the infiltration of strangers. Rouleau tells Dom that his flaw is that he thinks too straightforward, but to ask that question about the whirlwind allowing strangers on themselves. Dom raised his hand to strike the high mage, as the importance of that question dawned on him, he lowered his hand. His eyes grew wider as he understood. After a second, he shook his head and explained that the ramifications of allowing a claw through would be disastrous for everyone, as there wouldn't be a way to know who the claw's targets would be. Rouleau asked if they even needed to know. Dom wondered what he had meant by that. Rouleau explained that they were all dog slayers, the murderers of Coltane and the Seventh. As also, they are in charge of the mage cadre for the Apocalypse army. Finally, who will be commanding that army on that day of battle? Us. What chance would Sha'ik have if we were all dead? Why kill Sha'ik at all? We can fight this war without her, as they have done it before. Dom interrupts to say that he sees his point and sees that what Rouleau fears is the goddess permitting a claw into their midst in order to deal with them. Dom says that this is an interesting thought, but thinks it's too far-fetched. Dom says that the goddess is too emotional to think with that type of clarity. Rouleau said that she doesn't need to initiate or think of the scheme, but rather to just allow it to happen. Rouleau asked Dom if he doubted the cleverness of Topper. Dom growled under his breath as he admitted that he did not doubt Topper's cleverness. He told Rouleau that he relies on the goddess being in no mind to co-conspirate with anyone who refuses to knee to her will. He tells Rouleau that the man was worked himself up into a tizzy and now has brought Dom in there with him. Dom tells the High Mage that he has declined the offer and declares that they are well protected. Calmist Rouleau says that he has survived this long by listening to his gut and tells Corbolo to proceed the way he wants to, and he will do the same. Corbolo tells Rouleau to be gone as he would like to get some sleep. The High Mage stopped pacing and gave Dom a look before leaving the room. He drained the last of his wine and then threw the cup down. He walked to the massive cushions at the far end. He thought to himself that there were beds in every room, and wondered what that signified about his personality. And then again, those other ones were not meant for sleeping. So when I first read this section, I was like really weirded out by it, because I'm like, why do I need to know about what these two are doing? But as I read more and was summarizing, I'm like, aha, My first thought was the Holy Philadon thing. 5 of his 11 were personal assassins to, the Holy Philadon, which were the 7 rulers of 7 cities, if I'm remembering correctly, right?
Maybe. I don't remember.
They were rulers of the continent?
Something. Sure.
I wonder if they were the 7 renegades back when they were alive.
What 7? What renegades?
The Talani Mass Renegades. Faces in the Rock.
But aren't the Telanimus like hundreds of thousands year old?
Yeah.
You think it's going that far back?
I mean, it says that they were rewarded with gifts of alchemy and sorcery to maintain their youthfulness. So, yeah,
Which,
I think it's a possibility.
which they don't have anymore.
No, I'm assuming that they still do. Or that it's like a one thing, you know?
They look like fucking skeletons.
I don't think that the assassins are a mass. I think that they may have potentially served for them and have just maintained their youthfulness because of the gifts they received.
Gotcha. Okay. Sorry, I was confused.
No, it's okay. Sometimes I don't articulate things very well.
Sometimes we just gotta pull that info from each other. I'm sure I do it too to you also.
We do what we can, right?
That's right.
I just wonder if maybe that's the case, because 7 seems to be a very familiar number at this point. I feel like there is some type of tie there, that maybe these 7 faces in the rock, these 7 renegade mass, were once rulers. This thought about Corbolo Dom's own, created long ago when he realized that he now had a cause to worry about the claw. So originally, to me, the statement made me think of Corbolo Dom being master of the talons. But then right after the sentence, it says in his thinking of his creation, he now realized he had to worry about the claw. So maybe Dom was the one that helped Surly fashion the claw, but that would mean that he no longer supports the scene by joining the Apocalypse army. I don't know.
I think you're right, because when I read that, I remembered you talking about that before, and I think you're right about him being the master of the Talon, and that he created them as an answer to the claw.
Yeah.
So I agree.
I would agree.
We agree with each. That might be the first time we've agreed
Yes.
with each other in this. I think we agreed with each other a little bit before.
Yeah, I mean, we agree with each other a fair amount. This is probably our most divisive episode to air.
In quite a while. If it's not the most,
Yeah.
It's been quite a while. Yeah.
Yes, it has been a minute. So hopefully, we get some love for this episode.
It's been a fun one.
It'll be fun to edit too, even though this is going to be probably a 4.5-hour episode. 3 of the 10 left were a result of brutal process of elimination, leaving only 3 with the greatest skill. But this is what makes me think that Dom is a Talon, is because about how lucky he was to be brought with these guys. He talks about like the brutal elimination, which makes me think back to when the Claw were tasked with taking the Talon out. And clearly they were unsuccessful.
Weren't the Talons supposed to take out the Claw? Not the other?
No, the Claw took out the Talons.
Oh, okay.
That's why they're in hiding,
Gotcha.
right?
Sure. All right.
And then again, just the name Sormoinath at the River Vathar. And it's just brings you back to that epic battle. And me personally, I think it will go down as my favorite so far in the series. I don't think you'll agree, as Memories of Ice had pretty close battles to that of the Vathar, but it's just something that just rings in my mind. Like the Day of Pure Blood, just all of the events that took place, the butterflies, the forest, the river, the blood.
No, I would agree with you.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yep.
I definitely think that like there are definitely some close seconds.
Sure.
Siege of Capistan was pretty epic too.
Yeah, I would rate that. For me, I would rate that above Memories of Ice. And I like. It's weird because I don't think I ever really like poo-pooed on Memories of Ice, but like as I've been re-listening to the Horse Frog guys go through Memories of Ice, I've kind of realized how much I've liked that book. But I still don't think I like it as much as Dead House.
So would you go Dead House, Memories, House of Chains?
I don't know. We gotta finish it before I can give a ranking on that.
That's fair. And then, of course, Dom is talking to these 11 about a singular task that will trigger more tasks to follow. My guess is that this is them preparing for whatever betrayal is about to take place.
I don't have anything to add to that.
I mean, you would agree, right? That's 3 for 3. 3 in a row, dude. 3 in a row.
Take it when you can get it.
Yeah. This part where he thought to himself self about how it wouldn't be him to go down, but his two bodyguards. And I don't know. It just kind of affirmed to me that I don't like him. I don't like Dom. I get his reasonings, but he's still kind of a dick.
For sure. He's I don't know. To me, like a good commander should be selfless, and he's not.
Yeah. Also, there's this part where they talk about, Camus Trello and Dom are talking about who's left to really be afraid of. And Karza gets brought up about and predicted that he's never coming back. And I know that you have theorized or we have talked about him coming back. And yeah, I don't know. I think you also said that the way the last chapter ended, you could totally see Karza not being mentioned again. Or not mentioned, but not like that was a good end for him as far as this book is concerned.
I think it would be a good end, but I also think I don't think it's going to be the end.
No.
I would be satisfied if we didn't get any more of him in this book. I would be happy with this arc in this book, but I think he's going to be back.
Do you think that he will show up to the battle late? Do you think he's going to miss everything?
Is he going to be fucking Gandalf showing up?
I've never seen. We've been over this. I get like an hour and a half in, and I'm bored.
When I get my basement done, we're gonna watch all three of it's gonna be a 12-hour thing. We're gonna watch them all. You haven't seen that? You haven't seen the Battle of Helm's Deep? You haven't seen the Battle of Helm's Deep?
Nope.
Oh my god, your life is sadly lacking.
I love Lord of the Rings for what it has done for fantasy, but it's kind of mediocre to me. Unpopular opinion.
Very.
I will read it, and maybe my mind will be changed.
You know what? I have not read it.
No priority.
I have not read it in I read it in like middle school. It's been so long.
Should we do an epic quest about it?
We could. We could do that like on the side of things.
We're gonna do a side quest about Lord of the Rings. I feel like 1.5 million people have done that.
Oh yeah. Yeah. But once my basement's done, dude, we're gonna watch those movies.
All right, man. All
right. But
okay.
Yes, I think Carson will be back, even though I would be satisfied with his ending that he had in the last chapter, if that were an ending. I don't think it will be, but it would work for me.
Right, yeah, because there's no more questions. He did what he needed to do. Yeah, I would agree. Wow, that's like 4 for 4. You're on a roll.
Dang! Now I just got to convince you about that dragon.
Yeah, it's not happening. It's not happening. I think the Otatero dragon serves a different purpose. And then this part where Rouleau fears the goddess allowing a claw into their midst in order to deal with them, because the whirlwind sees them as intruders. And I don't think that this is the case. I genuinely believe that Kalam infiltrating the whirlwind is unbeknownst to her. But also, it makes sense why Rouleau is so paranoid, because the whirlwind knows more or less what they've been up to with her sorceress probing. So it does beg the question why she's allowing them to continue to be betrayalists. My answer, because of what Dom's saying, that she's too bent on destruction, and that's all she cares about. Not winning, not losing, just death and destruction. She wants to drink up that blood.
Well, she wants to take out Tavore, which she's obsessed with Tavore. They said that in the chapter.
But Sha'ik and Feluzin are not the same. Feluzin is obsessed with Tavore. But Sha'ik, which is just a puppet of the whirlwind, just wants death and destruction. That's why she doesn't care.
4 for 4 is pretty good, but I guess we're going to have to disagree again.
I guess 4 for 5 is 80%. Not bad.
Not bad. I think it's I think it's Sha'ik who's hell-bent on taking out Tavore. Because she's the dominant one of the two. Felson's repressed. She does, like, she's there, but she's kind of seeing through the eyes, but she doesn't really have a say in things.
But how is Sha'ik probing for everything that's happening in her camp?
She's sending out her little tendrils and shit.
She's sending out the whirlwind. She's using her warrant.
Guess we're gonna have to agree to disagree on things here.
Whatever. It's fine.
We were doing good for a little bit. We did pretty good for a good stretch there.
Yeah. We'll see if we can maybe get a different hot streak.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway. This part where Dom didn't doubt the cleverness of Topper. And I just think it's funny how that goes back to the who's more clever than them conversation. Because Dom is like, yeah, in Raraku, like, nobody's clever than us. But now that Rouleau kind of comes up with this maybe paranoid thing that there's a claw and maybe it may be even Topper who has infiltrated, and now he's like grumpy, you know? I just imagine him being like, God damn it.
But don't
Like, there is somebody smarter than me in Raraku, you know?
It's such a bad take for Dom to be like, yeah, I'm the cleverest guy here. Like, I don't know if that's something I would ever assume. I always think that there's probably somebody else, right? Like, there's always somebody else smarter than you. There's always somebody else better looking than you.
Yeah.
Like, blah, 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 whatever. Stronger.
But it's this false sense of confidence, right? And like, this is maybe where the Tavore Dom battlefield come into play, right? Like, Dom has all of the pieces, right? Like, maybe he is setting it up to be like Canusen. And then as soon as Tavore walks in, she's recognizing that, like, this is what was set up for me.
So
I know a way out.
You're seeing things my way, I feel like. What I was talking about before.
Yeah, I think it could go either or, right? Like, I think it's just like, do you take the element of surprise because now you know, Tavore knows that Dom knows that everybody agrees there wasn't a way to win that battle. However, Tavore has knowledge otherwise.
Again,
so maybe,
like,
maybe that is a way of preventing an all-out slaughter, because now she has the element of surprise because Dom is just like template matching Tavore to a completely different person, where Tavore has figured that puzzle out.
Yeah. I think, like, I get hung up on, like, the scholars thing.
Yeah.
Because
Dom is an idiot. Like, he's an idiot.
His overconfidence, I think, will be his downfall.
Yeah. And Rouleau calls that out as it's a flaw, right? He calls it a flaw. So it's just so funny because, like, I remember reading this chapter and I'm like, I don't know what the fuck is happening. And I just kept blaming it on the fact that, like, you don't really get to know these characters that well at all, period. But, like, as you just read it again and again, it just, things start to make sense.
Yeah.
I'm really wanting to see, like, this conversation isn't helping, because now I just want the book to be over so that, like, we can see where we landed with these things.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll have to have a follow-up episode.
I guess we'll see.
All right. We got to close this out. We still have like 5 sections left.
All right. Did you hit all your points?
I have one more left.
Okay. Take it.
This whole part with the multiple beds in every room, and he wondered what that signified of his personality. But then again, those other ones weren't meant for sleeping. I'm not sure what I'm supposed to interpret from that, outside of maybe Dom is just into like some kinky shit, or the beds are supposed to be a representation of, like, he has no friends because, like, nobody's in those beds. I don't know.
I guess I kind of thought, yeah, he's just like banging in those other beds, and one he just sleeps in.
Yeah, I feel like there was supposed to be maybe some significance that you were supposed to get out of that, but I didn't catch it, so I didn't know if, like, you had thoughts or what the case was.
Just He's got one bed designated for sleeping, and the others are kind of his fun time beds.
A good way to put it.
Yeah.
But yeah, those are the only thoughts that I had about that chapter. That section.
Am I drinking or are you, Justin?
I must be.
Mm-hmm. All right. Section 8 here. The woman Corbolo left still hadn't stirred. The continuous use of Durhang had essentially put her in a comatose state, which helped when her head was grabbed and yanked up and then dropped again. She was only dully aware of what was happening. It also helped with the, quote, rituals her master had her take part of, eliminating the weakness of pleasure. Her mind could no longer do battle with her feelings because she no longer had any. Much to her surprise, it was easy to surrender. She had nothing in her life to remember any sort of happy childhood. She was well suited for the task, for Corbolo Dam's peculiar preferences. When she was able to hear his deep breaths, she knew he wouldn't be easily woken. She rolled onto her side, coughing. Once the coughing fit passed, she checked again to make sure Corbolo was still asleep, and then made her way to the tent flap. A voice called out to her, naming her Scalara, and asking if she was off to the latrines again. Someone else said they were surprised she had any meat on her bones, since she went and puked every night. The first voice said it was the rust leaf and bitter berries that were mixed with the Durhang. Scalara pushed her way past the two. Hands reached out to steady her and found places to squeeze. In an earlier part of her life, she would have found she enjoyed it even if she was annoyed by it. But now she just needed to endure it, just like anything in this world, while she waited for her reward. Scalara thought to herself, the left hand of life, holding all the misery, and the right hand, yes, the one with the glittering blade, dear, the right hand of death, holding, as it does, the reward you would offer to others, and then take upon yourself at your chosen moment. Her master's words made sense, like they always did. Balance was everything, and life, that time of pain and grief, was only one side of the scale. The harder, the more miserable, the more terrible and disgusting your life, child, the greater the reward beyond death. And this all made sense to her. No need to struggle. Acceptance was the only path to walk. She weaved her way through the Dog Slayers' organized camp, a detail she learned as a child when she was with her mother, who was a camp follower, until she died, and her father, who was a soldier, who may or may not be dead. Either way, he didn't care about her. Balance. Down on the wooden walkways along the trenches were the latrines. Long-term camp trenches such as these held more than human waste, as garbage was often disposed here by soldiers or others. But the orphans, some of this was treasure, just waiting to be found, waiting to be cleaned and repaired and sold. So figures swarmed the trenches in the dark. She cried out, I remember the dark! There was a scramble from below her in the trench. A girl crawled out of the human filth and said, Me too, sister. Scalara withdrew a small bag of coins, even though their master did not like such gestures, as they ran opposite of his teachings. She told the girl it was for food. The girl said he would be displeased. Scalara said that of the two of them, she would be the one tormented, and told her not to worry about it. And now she had words to be brought to their master. This was another section I liked a lot. Just the darkness to it. Like this whole, like, do you remember the dark? I remember the dark. I don't know why I like this a lot, but I do. It's just interesting to me.
Why is it so interesting? Like it's just memorable? It's like the children are dying, or
No, it's not. I don't know how to explain it. It's just
it's
I
calling to?
I want to know more.
Okay.
Like, what is this about? The first time reading through this, I did not remember that, or I did not catch that she had been mutilated. And I know that that's come up earlier in the book. I don't remember exactly where, but I did not catch that. I don't remember, if I was reading late at night, maybe I was tired too, that type of deal. But when I was summarizing it, I caught it like, oh, dang, like it was like a yikes type thing. And then just to continue on to that, she thinks she doesn't have to fight her feelings anymore because she doesn't have any feelings. And just, this whole chapter has a lot of sadness to it. Maybe this is the saddest part. She's like, feelings are what make you human, right?
Yeah.
And she doesn't have any now, or thinks that she doesn't. And it makes me think of like the Tenascalri, like how that must be like how they felt. I would think like they probably don't feel like they have any humanity. They don't have any like feelings. It's just like you're trying, you're struggling to survive.
Yeah, maybe. And yeah, I guess here's some more division. I think with the Tenascalri is more like that primal urge to survive, whereas with Scalara here, I almost get the sense of indifference. Like she's just indifferent, like she's been indoctrinated to not feel, whereas the Tenascalri, it's more like naturalistic. It's almost more brutal to me. Both are bad, and it just Bidithal, it is an asshole. I mean, he's done this to not just her, everybody.
Yeah, I think it's a fine line to be on either side of it.
Yeah.
But I'm not saying it's a perfect comparison, but that's kind of where my mind went with things.
Yeah. No, I totally get what you're saying. And it is really sad. And this chapter is full of doubt. It's full of dread. It's full of very dark themes. And you kind of feel a little gross when you're done with it. You really do. It's a skeezy's maybe a bad way of describing a chapter, but it's a little unnerving. All of the things that you have to go through, and if this is the cult of Rashan, if this is the way that they treat orphans and little kids and places without a home, like,
It's not good.
no, it just kind of brings me back to like Lestara and, her description of when she was younger.
Yeah, I just like I've thought a lot about on this chapter, like like I told you, like I like this. Do you remember the dark? And I think a lot about that. Like, what does that mean? And I think, well, like, okay, well, like in the dark, nobody can see you. Nobody can see what you're doing.
You're hidden.
And that's when maybe like I don't know if I want to say like your true self comes out, but you can do things that maybe you wouldn't normally do because people are going to see you.
Because there isn't like the judgment of society.
Yeah. You could get away with something you normally wouldn't be able to.
Okay. I can go along with that. The whole do you remember the dark has got me a little lost, to be completely honest. I'm not sure what to really make of it, and I guess that sheds some light on it. So
But I don't really know what to make of it either. It's just like I would think like if you're in a dark room with like 15 people, like you could punch somebody in the face and nobody would know who did it, right?
then you would remember the dark.
Yeah, so I still don't really know what to make of it, but it's just it's very interesting.
It is very
I
interesting.
don't know what we're going to get out of this.
I hope there's some more elaboration.
Yes.
Like, I hope it's not just that. What else you got for this section?
Just this again, this wasn't something I caught the first time I read through the chapter, but when she's like she's pushing her way past these two voices, and hands reach out to steady her, and they find places to squeeze. And like when I summarize this, it just gave me the ick because I assumed they were either grabbing her butt or they were grabbing her breasts, and just like I'm kind of surprised I didn't catch this the first time that she's just like straight up being like sexually assaulted.
Oh, yeah. And you know who these dudes are, right?
I don't know.
They're the two dudes that Dom had made stand watch over him.
Oh, I did not catch
Picard,
that.
yeah.
Okay.
Dom's skeezy entourage, right?
Yeah. And then we get this quote from her. And again, like I like this as a quote, but I don't know that I like what like signifies. The left hand of life holding all the misery. The right hand, yes, the one with the glittering blade. The right hand of death, holding as it does the reward you would offer to others and take upon yourself at your chosen moment. So to me, what that reads is she's thinking about killing people, right?
Herself.
Yes. After. Killing yourself after when the time is right.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Yeah. Yeah, you're right. She was talking about killing people.
So that whole thing is just pretty rough. Maybe it's just like the dark place in my mind, but I like that quote a lot.
Do you remember the dark? Maybe it's a death thing.
Maybe.
I mean, when you die, things probably go dark.
Maybe.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. I mean, I think that you and I can agree that young woman is one of Bithadal's spies, spying on Corbolo Dom by sleeping with him.
I hadn't thought about that, but I can see that. That makes sense.
Yeah.
And I didn't jot this down as a point to talk about, but man, just like this, like I imagine this is just like a child climbing out of like a river of like human filth,
Poop.
right? Yeah. And she climbs out, and I didn't really summarize this part real well, but like it describes her like covered in it, but her teeth are white. It's just like, me too, sister. It just like,
It's sad, but it's funny, like as an image, like you just think of this small shape covered in shit. All you could see are probably the eyes and the teeth.
right. Yeah. And it was super visual to me, and like, not like I want to be like that it's a good thing or something, but it stood out like, man, like the lengths people go to do things, there's no end.
To survive, yeah.
Yeah.
There's a creepy old man essentially watching over them. When he doesn't need their attention, what are they doing? Surviving.
Anyways, I don't have any more thoughts here. I would probably be good to move on unless you have anything else.
No, I don't have anything else. Another new character, by the way.
Skillar.
Like we haven't met her before. I do like her name. Really
Yes.
do like her name.
I thought the same thing. I like the name too. Yeah, I agree.
All right. Section 9 here. Haborik had always walked funny, low to the ground. When he was a kid, he was ridiculed and called names for the way he walked. Even as an adult, those names persisted to be called. But Haborik had worked hard in his youth, long before his first visit to Fenrir's temple, to censor those names and to eventually earn the name Light Touch, based on certain skills he had learned on the streets. As a destrian of Treach, his walk has changed to a desire to drop even lower and use his hands to move him along. He slowed on the trail leading to Tobakai's glade as he smelled cooking fire and heard voices. He slipped off to the side within the stone trees and sat and watched the two seated by the fire. He had spent too long self-obsessing over creating his temple that he had ignored the world beyond his walls for too long. He felt angered at the new changes to his personality and his new gifts. He had ceased being mindful, and he gazed on the two figures. It struck him that he allowed a terrible crime to take place. He thought to himself that she's healed well, but not well enough to hide the truth. He wonders if he should reveal himself to them, but convinces himself not to. He figures out that the reason they're hiding is because they haven't called Bidithal out, and they would convince him, Haborik, not to as well. He had warned Bidithal, and it seemed the priest was amused, but that amusement was about to end. He slowly backed away. While deep in the shadows, Haborik hesitated, as neither his old self nor his new instincts clashed with each other. Both demanded blood. Something of the old Haborik was coming back into the fold. He was new to this role of destriant, as his god was a newly arrived god. Haborik didn't believe that Bidithal held any position within the realm of shadow. His temple was sanctified by someone. He realized that if he attacked Bidithal, that it could draw in his alliances, and that could escalate quickly. He thought to himself that he should just have stayed his old self, arm entwined with Otatero and an unknown being's immense power, because Haboric would rip Bidithal in half. He realized instead that he could do nothing, at least not tonight. He had to remain hidden and had to prevent Bidithal from becoming aware of his elevation to destriant for Treach. The rage suddenly returned, and he struggled to push it down. He slowed his breathing and then turned around to go back towards Trail. He would need to think about this, to measure when to attack. He curses Treach and asks him to make him a killer, a hunter. He approached the trail and heard a faint sound. A child in rags was coming from the ruins of a building, carrying a stick and many risen hanging from her belt. He would have difficulty passing her, but not impossible. He held towards the shadows as he grew closer, moving only when her back was turned. A short while later, he was past. Dawn was moments away, and camp was beginning to stir awake. Haboric increased his pace and eventually reached his tent. Apart from the girls, he'd seen no one. When the girl judged that Haboric was gone, she turned around and peered out into the gloom. She whispered that he was a funny man, and if he remembered the dark.
Interesting.
Yes. Why was the way I summarized it different than how you remember reading it?
No.
Oh, okay. That last part, though.
Yeah.
is-
Yeah.
We'll get there. What I thought was really cool is it appears that Heberick was bullied quite a bit when he was younger for the way that he walked, even when he was older. And I had no idea that a god could take away that type of thing, like remove people gawking and calling you names for the way you walk, or even another feature you have no real control over. Maybe I interpreted that wrong, but he uses the word excoriate and appellation based on their definitions. That's kind of what I came up with. So it kind of seems like he went to Fenner. He's like, hey, people are calling me names. I don't like it. And Fenner took that away.
When I read it, I felt like he had to like work towards it.
He had what?
Like he had to work towards like walking better. I guess.
So maybe like Fenner helped him walk better.
I don't even know if it was like a
Speech
thing.
therapist
It was
or
just like I hesitate to use the word like skill, but it was just something he had to work on his own to improve. Maybe I just interpreted it differently than you. That's all.
I don't know. It's just long before his first visit to Fenner's temple, to censor those names and to eventually earn him the name Light Touch. Maybe I don't know. I guess I don't know. I just thought that was cool, as I feel like that was what it was implying. Serve a god, no longer have to be called names.
Then we've also seen the guy, like with Munug in Memories of Ice, he lost his legs.
In service to a god.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. This part where it kind of gives me the sense that Haboric in his youth was maybe very similar to Crocus in Gardens of the Moon. A thief. Skills he had learned on the streets. Makes me think thievery. So it just kind of reminded me of Crocus from Gardens of the Moon, which not a bad thing. Because we know him as Cutter now.
Yeah.
It's funny how the same character, even though they're named differently, also have like different images in your head. I would not call Crocus and Cutter the same.
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's changed.
Yes. He has grown.
Yeah.
His character has arced or is arcing. And then this part where he walks even lower because now he walks as a cat or a large cat would. And I love that there's these extra layers that really add detail and you get a better scale of his transformation,
Yeah.
I hope to God that Haboric is the one to take out Bidithal. Not because Fellows and Younger doesn't deserve to, but only because the Seven have some hook in her, and I don't want them getting what they want. I don't know if you agree on that.
I could see that happening, but I feel like it would be more of like a revenge situation.
On Felsen Younger's part?
On
Or
on
Haboric's?
Heberic's part, because I don't know if Ellison Younger is going to survive.
Now, I'm not sure. I'm leaning more towards I agree with you on her not surviving, which makes me sad. Maybe that makes Haboric all that more rageful. A tiger is a lot more aggressive than a boar.
I would think so, yes.
And then this part where Haboric is like, oh, well, Bidethal's held many or holds a position with the realm of shadow, and his temple has been sanctified by someone. Then you know what I'm gonna guess? I'm gonna guess the crippled god. I don't know. That's my guess. Last comment here, and then we can move on. Oh yeah, this. Do you remember the dark? Trying to sneak past the girl. I kind of have two different scenarios in my mind, and maybe that's just me not understanding the context. But I, part of me thinks that it's not meant for Haboric to be stealthy enough, or maybe it is. I know that, like, to Haboric and from our perspective, you get the sense that maybe he is being stealthy enough, but then there's also the perspective from the girl where clearly he wasn't stealthy enough. So is it like a weird sorceress thing? Like, is she able to see better in the dark than most kids would? And there's this weird, yeah, I don't know. It was weird. It threw me for the loop the first time I read it. And I'm like, what? We were just talking about Haboric getting to his tent, and now we're to the perspective of this girl for these last 3 lines. What?
I felt like he wasn't being as sneaky as he thought he was.
Okay. That's what I am like majority leaning to, but I wasn't sure.
Right or wrong, I don't know, but that's how I felt about it.
Okay. Then cool. It's not that huge of a deal. I just wanted to like have some type of solidification there.
Sure.
But yeah, I'm good to move on.
All right. Is this my last section, or do I have one more?
I think you have one more.
Just before dawn, Leoman and 200 of his warriors struck the Malazan camp. The infantry on watch were at the end of their shift, waiting for the sun to rise, and were grouped together. A lapse in their judgment made them easy targets for the archers. A volley of arrows loosed altogether took out the soldiers, though half of them were not killed outright. The screams of pain broke the early morning silence, but the archers already ditched their bows and were closing the distance between them with their knives to finish them off. The Leomen and the rest of those on horse broke through the lines and into the camp. Korab Bylan Thenulas rode at his commander's side with a half sword, half axe in his right hand. Leoman was at the center of a curved sweep of his men, protecting others where there was a steady whirring sound. Korab knew what the sound was. They had made their own version of Moranth munitions. Clay balls filled with oil connected by a small chain, lit like lamps and then thrown like a bolus. The weapon hit their target, and the darkness lit up. Korab saw a figure fleeing, and he chucked his sword axe at it and hit it in the helmet. As he pulled it free from the body, it nearly dislocated his shoulder, as it was much heavier. When he looked down, he saw he had taken the head with it, bits of brain scattered about. He swore and tried to shake it off. Fighting was all around, and there were a dozen or so wagons on fire, as well as tents. More Malazan soldiers were emerging, and crossbow bolts were being hurled at the horse warriors. A horn sounded over the din of battle. He had already lost sight of his commander, and the rest of his men were retreating to the sound of the horn, like he would as well. The axe pulled at his shoulder, still clinging to the helm Malazan, as he rode out his way. His cheek was suddenly on fire. He turned his head and was grazed by a crossbow bolt. He looked and saw a squad with crossbows all pointed at him, except one that had already fired. It had only been moments, and the bastards were barely 10 paces away. He flung his axe away and pitched his horse into the side of a tent as the crossbows were fired. As the horse was going down on the side, Korab was leaping from the saddle. He somersaulted when he hit the ground, turning just in time to see his horse roll right side back up. He leapt back into its saddle, and they were off, and in his mind he was numb with disbelief. We really messed up that one sentence, but
I mean, it's all good. It's kind of a weird association between the two.
yeah, yeah. Just a lot of action here. I don't think I had any thoughts on this section, but
I thought the brains were cool, and I think that you think that that was pretty cool too.
oh yeah,
Uh,
yeah, I did have one thought. I think just like a half sword, half axe. Like I don't know if I've ever heard such a weapon before. Well, it's not something I would probably want to mess with.
no, not at all. Not at all. And I mean, it clearly did some damage. I mean, he's carrying around a head with some brains in it, like that was fucking cool.
Yeah,
I also thought this like stunt he did with his horse was pretty cool. And obviously himself and others are in disbelief too.
right.
So
This was one of the sections that made me think about like Coltane. Like if he was here, would the soldiers have had better discipline about staying sharp, at their post?
I see where you would derive that question.
And it's hard to say.
I don't know. Maybe. Yeah, probably. Because Coltane kept everybody like real tight.
Yeah, he definitely ran a tight ship on things. Like he didn't really let a lot slide.
Yeah. Fair enough. Then could have this been prevented?
Maybe.
Yeah. Yeah, fair. Yeah. It's a fair question.
And it doesn't seem like they took a ton of losses, but maybe they could have been minimized even more.
Right. But I think it's and this will happen in your section, your last section. But I don't think it's any secret that they're really just trying to draw out the Seti, the Kundral, and the Wickets
Right.
because they're their strongest players. They're trying to get them to chase them, right?
Right.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I would agree with you. Action, kind of a little bit of a different taste from what we've been seeing so far in this chapter.
Well, you want to take your shorty here?
Yeah. On the opposite side of the avenue, 7 Malazan Marines stood or crouched with spent crossbows, staring at the rider as he rode off. One of them asked if they had seen what just happened. Silence and the sound of a crossbow hitting the ground was heard, where Duke growled and told Lutz to pick up his weapon. Lutz, scorned maybe for firing too early, maybe replied that he wasn't sure. Borduke told them to load their weapons as there could be few left. A Marine named Hub asked the sergeant if the horse, maybe, killed the cook. Borduke asked if the gods were smiling down on them then. Hub couldn't answer that question, and Borduke said that the truth remains that they'll have to kill the cook themselves before he kills them with his cooking. He told his crew to never mind that for now, and they need to get moving. I don't have any comments. It was fairly straightforward. I guess it's nice to know that these guys were in on some action.
Yeah, I don't really have anything to add there either.
All right. Take her away, dude.
All right. The sun had begun to rise when Leomin halted with his riders. Crab was late in arriving, actually one of the last, and Leomin was happy about this, as if he sensed Crab had taken up the rear guard out of a sense of duty, though he did not notice he had lost his weapon. Behind them they could see smoke rising in the morning sky and hear horse hoofbeats. Leomin said it was a job well done, but now the real objective was near. Could they hear them? Seti, Wiccans, and Kundral, and that would be their order of pursuit as well. They would need to be careful with the Kundral and their armor. The Wiccans will range cautiously, but the Seti would charge hard once they saw them. He raised his flail and asked, where would they lead them? A roaring reply of, to death, was his answer.
Yeah. Kind of a two-part little siege there.
Yeah, and even as much as like I don't want that side to win, like I feel like we're supposed to be rooting for the Malazans. Just I really like that to death battle cry.
Yeah. Leomin's kind of come a little bit into his own in this chapter. Like him a little bit more than I did previously. Like before reading this chapter, it was nice to get a little bit of revelation on him because We don't get much. He's still kind of a mystery character, at least in my opinion.
Yeah. We'll see what happens here.
Yeah. I would imagine that with all this Leoman foreshadowing, that maybe he's the only one left. Like Karza doesn't even come back, and Leoman's just the only one left. I don't know why. They kind of make it seem throughout this chapter in a couple of different conversations and scenarios that Leoman is almost like the heart, because Karza's not here, and he's the only one who has both cold and hot iron. And Leoman, while not here, is still present for the Apocalypse Army, is the only one left with cold iron. So maybe that's a foreshadowing to something.
Maybe.
Maybe he literally is the only one left.
Yes, we'll see what happens.
Maybe he comes back and like everybody's already been obliterated, and he like picks everybody up by their bootstraps and leads an army. I don't know. Like it's just weird that like this mystery character, all we need to know is that he's got cold iron, and like all of these different things kind of come in to your canon, right? About who he is as a character, even though it's not explicitly told to you. It's just interesting.
It is.
So last section here. We did it.
Ready to bring this thing home?
Yeah, dude.
All right.
The rising sun had turned the overlaid of gold color of the spinning wall of sand that was the whirlwind. Febril sat atop a gate tower now turned to rubble. The reborn city was at his back, and the occupants were beginning to wake up. So little were they aware of the events that would take place this day. The goddess devoured, consuming life's forces, taking in the will to survive from her hapless mortal servants. Her effect was gradual, but day after day it would deaden, unless someone was aware of that hunger and would take preventative measures to avoid her demand. Long ago, Sha'ik Reborn had claimed to know him, to have drawn out his every secret. She had shown the ability to speak her mind, and always took those moments to remind him of that fact. But that was happening less and less, and maybe that was due to his events in masking himself from the whirlwind. Maybe, though the truth was far less flattering, and perhaps the whirlwind goddess had lured Sha'ik into indifference. He thought to himself that maybe he's already dead, and he just didn't know it yet. That everything he had planned was known to Sha'ik and the goddess. Was he alone in having spies? No. Corbolo had hinted of his own agents, and nothing he, Febril, came to want could be accomplished without those killers. He reflected that many of the players of this game hid themselves from allies and enemies, as sometimes things took a wrong turn. Nonetheless, he had faith in Rouleau. The High Mage had had good reasons to remain loyal. The scheme of betrayal, as this was the only scheme that would allow Rouleau's survival. As far as the smaller details, those were none of Rouleau's concerns. Febril asked if they were the High Mage's concern, though. He thought to himself that even if those details came true to be fatal to everyone but him, they all thought themselves clever, and that was a flaw that just invited exploitation. He asked himself if he thought himself clever. He looked at the distant wall of sand and smiled. Being clever was not essential, provided things remained simple. Complexity welcomed errors. He told himself that he would avoid that trap. He will not suffer lapses like Bidithal did, as they had led to issues. On the plus side, all Bidithal's failings would lead him right into Febril's lap, so he shouldn't complain too much. Sha'ik showed up and said something to make Febril turn around. She tells him to take deep breaths, as it will stop his stammering heart. She could wait a moment as she was patient. Febril wondered how she had approached so silently. He asked her if she was here to watch the dawn with him. Sha'ik asked if that was what he did each time he came here in the morning. Febril admits that he had humble habits. Sha'ik said that this made sense, as the simple tasks of the mind and body would create a perfection for the mind. Febril didn't respond to that. Sha'ik sighed and said that she should tell him something to aid him in his quest. The wall of the whirlwind was not transparent. and so she must correct him, and that he was facing northeast, and not east, as the sun was over there. She pointed with her hand towards the sun. Also, there was another she needed to correct, and that the goddess was consumed with anger, and so in turn she consumed. She doesn't feed on the energies of her followers, whereas she provides them with a certain focus, a little different than that, a little different than the wall of the whirlwind, whereas the diffuse of sunlight is trapped by the wall and not able to bleed through it. She asks the high mage when something appears only one way, that there's a possibility it's actually the other. Tavore thought about his actions and thought he had made a careless error. It was too late to reconsider or change his plans. Somehow, the newly arriving day had lost its luster. I don't really know what to make of this section because, again, we don't really know much about Febrile. We just kind of know that he's been scheming. We don't know what he's scheming. We know who his co-conspirators are, but we don't really get a good sense of who Febrile is. So this section, actually, I struggled with. I don't know what to make of it, outside of the fact that Febrile caught him like a teenager masturbating. You know what I mean? Like mom walked in, you were
mid-stroke,
punching the one-eyed clown, and you got caught, right? Like, that's exactly the reaction that Febrile is giving to me, because clearly Sha'ik or the whirlwind is allowing Sha'ik to hear what he's talking about in his mind. But also, this whole diffuse sunlight trapped by the wall and not able to bleed through it, it's giving the whirlwind the illusion that it's not transparent, when in actuality it is. So I thought that was kind of a cool thing, because it's an illusion from a Warren that is based on illusions, you know?
I didn't know what to make of this either.
I struggled.
So you're not alone in that.
Okay. I mean, it seems like Febrile's almost been had. Everything that we've read up to this point makes it seem like the whirlwind is aware of his scheming and just doesn't care. So, like, why all of a sudden, like, what's changed?
I don't know.
So, and again, maybe the section is meant to be like this. Maybe there's more that will eventually come of it, but I feel like the night of betrayal is still going to take place. Like, or maybe it won't. Maybe this is her finally making a stop to that. I don't know.
We'll have to see.
Unrelated to this section, but as I was editing chapter 17, which should hopefully go live sometime tonight, tomorrow morning, that part where Synagig and the Jaghut in the tree, Furless, or whatever you want to call it, are talking about Karza, how the Jag horses smelled the bloodwood in his veins or something like that.
Yeah.
I think that is how, because that's almost like an ode to Terrell dust, right?
Yeah, that's kind of what we thought it was.
Like an ode to Terrell oil, right? It repels magic. This is how the glade is unable to be seen by the whirlwind.
Repelling the magic?
Yeah.
Interesting.
So he's infused. But also, remember how he cut himself when he was shaping his blade?
I don't know if I remember that.
Yeah, in chapter 16. No, 15? 16? 16. Yeah, at the beginning of 16, because we talked for an almost fucking hour about it. No, maybe it was chapter 17. Was it this previous chapter? Yeah, it was this previous chapter. Chapter 17, last chapter. Yeah, at the beginning, he's creating his giant sword, and he cuts himself. So now the sword is also got Baroth and Delum's spirit in it, but it's also invested with Talan, and it's also got Karza's blood in it, which is a repellent to magic. So how all those kind of coincide with each other, I don't know. I feel like the Talan and the Otatero would like combat each other, kind of similar to Haboric's arms. So I just a weird thing from me editing that today.
We'll have to see where that goes.
Where do you think we're going to go next? Where do you think this next chapter is going to take us?
I don't know. I don't know who we're going to see next.
Well, I think we're going to get the other side of Leoman's little siege,
The
right?
Malazans.
Yeah, I think we're going to go back to Tavore.
I could see that. I did look to see how long this next chapter was, and it's like 30 pages.
Oh, okay, that's not bad.
No.
Not bad. I will probably. I mean, tomorrow's Sunday. I don't have anything going on, so I'll probably read because I'm excited to move on.
For sure.
And we're out of episodes, so I'm gonna have to turn this episode around next week.
Sorry.
It was a good episode.
No.
This is probably going to be one of my favorites, which again is so funny because again I'm just going to blame it on that I was tired when I tried to read this chapter the first time, but like I did not like this chapter when I first read it.
Oh, really?
My initial reaction was like, "What the fuck is going on?"
I like this chapter a lot, but I agree. I think I'm very proud of this episode. I think this will be one of our best.
Yeah, I would say so. I would agree.
Will we agree about that at least?
Yeah. I mean, I feel like there was a good amount of division and I feel like there was a good amount of unity.
But it was a good discussion, I think.
Yeah. Well, and it's been a minute. It's been 2 weeks since we've recorded. So we're going to have to get back into that every week game.
Yeah, I think we're going to go down to Iowa for the 4th. And then the week after that, we'll be down in Branson. So I'll try to, I should be able to get you another Bare Bones episode before then.
Okay. Whatever works. So it'll be 3 weeks before we record again.
We'll see, I guess. I don't know.
Ooh.
I'm sorry.
Yes, it is what it is.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
It was a long one. You even undershot it a little bit here. It's damn near 11 o'clock.
Yep. Yes, I did. I did not expect that we would be divisive for so long on a particular section.
But it was fun. It was good.
Yeah, it was. It was definitely good. So I'm gonna wrap this up, go to a little more food, and then I guess we'll see you in 3 weeks.
Yeah, I'm going to eat some food too. I've drank more than I've ate today, so it's time to eat something.
Feeling it, huh?
A little bit.
Fair enough. All right, sir.
All right, man. Have a good night. Thanks, everybody. Take care. We'll see you soon.
All right. Bye, y'all.
Bye.
DMJ's Epic Quest. DMJ's Epic Quest. CMJ's Epic Quest. CMJ's Epic Quest. CMJ's Epic Quest. CMJ's Epic Quest.